5:30. It's Monday, January 29th. We'll call the Liberty Elementary School District Governing Board Working Study Session to order. We have four. Can you hear me on this?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. I guess I got to be much closer. We have four board members present. Board Member Bixler, Board Member Parks, Board Member Kenyon. I'm sorry, Vice President Parks. By the end, I'll have it right. Board Member Kenyon and myself, Michael Todd. Our next item of business is 1.2, the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Can you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Had to make sure she was paying attention. She was, so we'll move on to 1.3, school number 8. Dr. Monroe.
President Todd, Vice President Parks, members of the board, appreciate you coming out to the study session tonight. There's a few topics we want to discuss with you, and I'm just going to kind of set the context here and hand it over to Bob. But a few of you were at the design meeting we had with DLR for school number 8. Let's see, last week, I think, or the week before. It was very positive. There was a great energy in this room. A lot of positive ideas from community members, staff, parents in this room, and then also online. And so we wanted to have Bob and DLR give you a little update on that meeting and maybe kind of the 4 or 5 big ideas that came out of that meeting. And we will continue to have these quote unquote design meetings every month or every other month with regards to safety and programming and those kind of things. Bob will also talk to you guys and get any input or feedback that the board has early on about the school design, if there's things that the board wants us to keep in mind as we move ahead with our architect. And then also update you on the timeline. Land has been a bugaboo, and so Bob and I are kind of in overdrive dealing with our primary land site that we have our targets on, but also now some secondary land sites because of a recent meeting we had with the city and a few other things that are happening. So I would say we probably have a 3 or 4 month window to really land the plane on the land in order to not see a delay by opening school in August 2025. So still very doable, but we just want to update the board with some of the hand wringing and the phone calls and the networking that Bob and I are doing. So DLR will also be part of the kind of presentation and summary right now, and we'd invite David and his staff up if you guys want to take a seat at the table here, David, and we can kind of bring the board up to speed. So, Mr. Young.
Thank you, Dr. Monroe. One item on number 8, we did the RFQ for the CM at risk. We had 6 firms respond to that. Shortlisted it to 3. We will be interviewing those on Thursday, this coming Thursday. So get that down and we'll bring information back to the board for approval on that. The Thursday, January 17th community input meeting went very well. We had a good turnout, had several of the board members present with us. Just some really good ideas came out of that and some good things. I think it was a really good community meeting. It was good, good feedback, good talking to the community and staff members. Even had some students here, so that was good. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to David with DLR, and he can introduce his team. And if there's any questions, just feel free to put them out, and we'll see if we can answer them, or we'll mark them down and get back to you with it.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Members of the board, Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity. This is really your time, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the process and where we went. But feel free to ask questions, stop me at any time, and I can kind of go through it. We can elaborate on some of the main points and I think some of the takeaways that we got from this, and then we can talk a little about the process moving forward as well. You'll see a number of boards around you. So as Mr. Young mentioned, we had a session, and I know a few of you were there, and thank you for attending as well. About 75 minutes. And kind of led them through a series of exercises. And so the first exercise we looked at, and I have the board right behind me, we looked at a couple different design ideas about how you might lay out the site. And I think that they were introduced as not as finished design concepts, but as a number of ideas kind of compiled together into two designs. And so you could take a lot of the ideas in either one of those and think of them interchangeably. And so we asked those in the audience to make notes on them and to go forward and give us their feedback on things that they think work well in terms of vehicular circulation, how it's laid out in relation to the neighborhood and the houses around it, things about how the buildings relate to each other. We looked at ideas of student circulation on the site and got a lot of feedback from that as well. A lot of the feedback obviously was about vehicular circulation and how you get to the site, and obviously that's a major concern with any school nowadays. Other exercises we looked at, and these are in no particular order, but outdoor spaces and the spaces kind of around the school. If you think of what we call negative space, the space in between the buildings, and that was an area of we wanted a lot of feedback because the buildings themselves are the district has an educational vision for how those are used, and so we looked the things that the public weighs in on, or the space around the buildings themselves, which is really a big component of a school in Arizona. And we asked them to vote with dots, and so everybody got green dots, several green dots, and one wanted to keep it positive, but they got one negative dot for each one. And so red obviously is things they don't like, and you can start to see some trends forming here. Student spaces here, kind of shade, intimacy. You can see really an emphasis on spaces that where groups can gather. And so there's a couple of you see right hand side, second from the bottom, an amphitheater. And there's a couple of other ones like that as well, and they got a lot of high marks. You'll notice a few that had red marks, and a lot of the comments regarding those are safety, and so I think or student safety from the aspect of falling on your head, right? And so there's obviously I think a big discussion as to like the idea of letting students explore and find themselves, and at the same time the liability of them hurting themselves. And so I think that there's a good balance in between there. Some other things that came out of this, obviously shade. You'll notice bottom right on the bottom board as well. Got a lot, and that was all about like providing shade. The board over here, the right-hand center, was a big one in terms of nature, bringing nature in and trees, and the concept that that's a vital part of our daily experience. And then intimacy, kind of, and I don't know if I necessarily think that that's the most intimate space, but top left, the idea that there's kind of an enclosure, there's a sense of space as well. And so those are some of the big ideas that had come out of that. We also went through, obviously, then look and feel. So in addition to these three boards on outside, look and feel, you'll see on this board right here behind Mr. Kenyon, and some of the more modern, kind of stark-looking buildings did not get high marks. The spaces that are very fun, for example, on the right-hand side in the center, if you get up close, there's a lot of little whimsical things going on in there, and so that got high marks as well. And then looking at on the far right, over there in the corner, looking at different design concepts as well, and which ones kind of spoke to you. And it's balanced, but I think we can work with either one. The one about on the right, obviously, got some good marks, and really the idea of water. And as you may know, skipping back to the original board, there's an easement that goes down the center of the site, and it's actually two sites, and so there's be an irrigation pipe underground, and so it's not going to be a canal, so to speak, but the idea that that we celebrate that somehow, that it manifests itself on the surface, and that's not necessarily in the fact that there's open water, but but conceptually, the idea that there's a tie between the land and the irrigation of and how we survive in the Western United States, and the tie to irrigation as well. And so maybe there's a learning opportunity in that. So a lot of good ideas that we can work with that came out of this as well. So as we kind of push forward into finalizing our site ideas, we've also got some ideas that we can work with as well in terms of all the little pieces and parts that make the school intimate and component for children as well. So questions?
Sure. And any of the board members, I know a few of you that were there, if you had any comments, I thought it was a very positive session. I thought there was a lot of creativity and some big ideas that came out of it. But I don't know if any of the board members who were in attendance had anything to say or any questions or input that you might have now. Paul?
Yeah, I did have the opportunity to attend the meeting. I thought it was very, very good, and the input was wonderful. Just so that I understand, and maybe everybody else that wasn't there can figure that out, the site access exploration maps you have there, those are examples, but they're not in stone. So it's actually possible to pick and choose pieces of each and create a whole separate third one, if that's what we want to do. Is that correct?
Yes. In fact, I would hope that what comes out of it isn't exactly either of those.
The question I have, it deals with the open spaces. There's one, the figure on the right has an additional parking lot that the figure on the left does not. Just so I know, I'm assuming that construction and maintenance of the parking lot would be more than construction and maintenance of the green area on the other. Is that a correct assumption?
I'm not sure what you mean by more, I guess. Is it in terms of cost or?
Yeah, I'm looking at bottom line, because I think at some point we're going to have to decide, we're going to have to give up on a few ideas as we get in
First
construction.
cost or maintenance, long-term maintenance for the district?
Well, I'd like to know the original cost, and if we could make a guess on maintenance, that'd be good, but I don't think we can.
Well, two different things, I guess. So first cost of building a paved parking lot would probably be significantly higher than a landscape area, and unless you get into very detailed landscape areas. But if you're thinking gravel and trees and a little bit of turf, far less to build that than a parking lot. Parking lot probably has very little short-term maintenance, but you have some cost in maybe resealing it every 10 or 15 years, which doesn't put an impact upon district maintenance personnel necessarily so much as just cost to do it. Landscape areas obviously have upkeep, and someone needs to keep them clean and blow them and mow them and trim trees and so forth. And so that
if we
puts
do
a
want to keep
kind
it
of weekly or monthly burden on Bob's maintenance teams.
oh yeah, I hadn't even thought about the personnel costs in that. I was thinking more like, well, water and so on. So yeah.
True, that as well.
Okay. Interesting. So initially it may be more, but on the long run, it might actually be less to have the parking lot over 15 years.
And the one on the left-hand version, I mean, you could fit more parking in there as well. I don't.
Right. Yeah, we could.
That should be a concern. I mean, cost. If cost were no object, we could figure out how to fit as much parking as was needed. Right?
Is cost going to be no
Yeah.
object?
No, not at
No.
all. No.
Well, and the board, each board member has the meeting minutes and kind of Dave's summary there with some of the big ideas. I think parking may even surface there as we look at that to Member Bixler's kind of point in his question. Other questions from board members? We're in the preliminary design stages. That's why we're trying to get input. Anything that comes to your mind you want us to watch out for, or you want us to study or consider?
So I apologize, I didn't make the meeting and I was really hoping to be there, but where does the irrigation pipe actually run if we look at this, or is that something that's going to be done?
So it has to make it from right down the middle, from the top of the site to the bottom of the site, but it hasn't been designed yet. So it's been known to us that we could design it to go however we want, other than the fact that it has to flow by gravity. And so you could make it go loop all around the buildings, but obviously there's a big cost associated with that we'd probably be expected to chip into on. So
Yeah, my concern is in either of these plans, just something for us as a board to think about and the community as well, is if it goes right down the middle of the property and we put sidewalks and stuff over there, obviously we can't have, buildings over those. But if they ever have to tear up that pipe again, we're going to be ripping all of our sidewalk and everything out. So just something else to think about,
Yes.
where we could put that.
I was wondering if we could take a look at the possibility of adding single stall bathrooms. I think that would be a good idea on the safety front. I think it'd be, take a look at it now while we're looking at Building 8 and see how that would fit in.
I think that's a really good possibility. It's becoming and DLR knows that's becoming pretty common in a lot of new schools that are built for safety. So that's definitely something we can look into. I know David's been working with Mesa and other districts about it too. So any other input on the board? So I'd like to have Bob kind of talk to you a little more and give you an update on the timeline of where we are with 8 and the land. Remember that we're going to talk in item 3 about deferred maintenance. We lost the bond. I know, not a newsflash. But I believe, and Beth can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, we're getting about $25 million from the school facilities board to build the school. And so we believe if we can find a few more $1 million, and that's what we'll talk to you here in a few minutes, that we can get the first phase of this school successfully built as a K-6, as a pre-K to 6. And so we'll be coming back to the board periodically with updates and asking for input and those kind of things. And but wanted to give the board a chance initially to ask any questions as we're kind of doing some preliminary design. So Bob, do you want to take the mic and talk about update on timeline and such?
Yeah, as I said a little bit earlier, that we were, 6 contractors responded, 3 shortlists. We're going to interview Thursday and come back to the board on February 12th. We hope to have someone we're recommending to you. March 11th or 25th, we'll have approval of the contract, and then a notice of award will go out contingent on the board date that it gets approved. So right after we get that CM at risk contractor on board, they'll be working directly with us and DLR to go through the drawings and help us narrow down what we can do for some cost savings, some value engineering, as I like to call it. Looking at the project, how it's laid out, how it's built, what materials are used, and we can keep narrowing it down to the point where we can get, everybody's comfortable. My big deal, obviously, is long-term maintenance of a building, how we can maintain it, what's going to last, what's going to be in there for the comfort and safety of the staff and students. So we want to make sure that we're getting the best value. I mean, we don't want to go cheap and 2 years down the road we're putting money into it. We want to make sure we have something that's going to last and it's built to last for us for a long time. The land issue is, as Dr. Monroe said, we working with the developers on that. They're supposed to get back to me this week. Hopefully we'll set up a meeting to see what best way we can get roads and utilities to this site, but not waiting for them. We have contingency plans in place. We'll work with the city of Buckeye. They're helping us to look for some land on their side of the street. And also a realtor that's been working with city of Buckeye, Buckeye Union School District for land. And they want to know if we would consider combined site with one of their high schools. And of course we would, because if we could share facilities, that would be a big savings for us. But they're looking to build a school up in that same area, and they said they found a 100-acre site, but they only need like 80 of it, so they could, carve out 20 acres for our site if that worked out. So whichever one seems to be the best fit for us, whatever works best, that's the way we're going to work on it. And of course, the construction schedule is built by August of 2025 is the opening day, so we back it up from there. A month before, 2 months before, we need to have furniture and equipment delivered. And right now, as soon as we get a contractor on board, we have to order the long lead time items, electrical gear. 70 weeks out, they're telling us to get electrical gear for the school. So we have a pretty good schedule put together and what needs to happen, and we do know by April, May, we have to have the land procured and in place and ready to go. So that's what we're working on right now.
Okay, if there's no more questions or comments, we'll move to item 1.4, electric school buses. Again, Dr. Monroe, if you'll lead us off.
Sure, come on over, Dondi. And so, great news, President Todd and Vice President Parks. We've been awarded part of a state grant to purchase electric school buses. So I just want to tell you the story, and then I'm going to hand it over to Bob and Dondi a little bit. What we want to get from the board over the next few minutes is really the questions that you have so that we can investigate and bring that back to the board about potentially buying some electric school buses so that we can have a really good research presentation on pros and cons and all those things to the board before we decide to participate in the grant or not, which certainly isn't mandatory. But these are good things. So this came to my attention about 2 weeks ago. I did not know prior to this, and it sounds like through some investigation, prior administration, and maybe there was a board member who is very interested in this idea of electric school bus and joining a grant to have electric school buses funded as part of that grant, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, maybe, right, Dondi? And so lo and behold, we were just awarded and we were just told we were part of this grant 2 weeks ago. In fact, I think there was a story on the news because multiple districts were part of this grant from RWC, and we were awarded the potential to buy 13 electric school buses, okay? And a lot of districts are really starting to dabble with electric school buses. As we know, electric vehicles are becoming more in style, and I just read some about a grant the state is being a part of now by putting in more charging stations in Maricopa County. And so prior to 2 weeks ago, I had not seriously thought about electric school buses. So it was a very nice surprise. So we're really gearing up. We had a cabinet meeting last week where we kind of made a list of all the advantages and disadvantages and questions we had, kind of a plus delta, so we can really research appropriately to bring to the board this idea of potentially buying some electric school buses. I could be wrong here, Beth, but I believe we have 800,000 to 900,000 for school maintenance or school pupil transportation vehicles as part of the last bond. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dondi, but an electric school bus, the whole school bus wouldn't be paid out of the grant. We'd have to pay, I don't know, $100,000 per school bus. So a diesel school bus costs about $200,000. Is that right? And an electric school bus costs about what? About $450,000 right now. So essentially, the grant would cover about $350,000, I think, of the school bus. So we would have to pay the difference on that. There's also implications to our transportation center being able to have charging stations. So it's a very, very good news. But I'm going to turn it over to Bob. And like I said, I just want the board to be thinking. I know we put some in the board update for you, but we really want to research all the questions you have about this. So that we can bring back RWC in a very well-researched presentation and decide if that's something we want to dip our toe into. We certainly don't have to buy all 13. I think we have 2 years as part of the grant to purchase some of the buses. We could buy 2, we could buy 4, we could buy 2 special ed buses and 2 regular ed buses. And so it's exciting, but it's a new frontier. And so, like I said, we really want to do our due diligence, research it, and be able to answer the board's questions. So, Bob?
Well, that's that. Any questions? That was good. Great job. Awesome.
What's the life expectancy of these electric buses or the batteries?
From the batteries, they're telling us 8 to 10 years. And I'm looking at Dondi because she's more of an expert on this than I am. So 8 to 10 years on the batteries. The batteries actually come with an 8-year warranty, no prorated. If anything goes bad with the batteries in 8 years, they replace them at no charge to the district. The life of the bus is similar to the diesel bus. They're like 15 years you can get out of them. And am I saying that correctly? Yeah. So, depending on maintenance, how you take care of them, they can last longer. Just like your car, if you change the oil and do what you need to do, you can prolong the life of your vehicles. The chargers, come with the buses. They're slow charges. That's part of the grant package. We have to pay for the infrastructure, for the electrical.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Was coming back, the DLR coming back, and because, you know, if we're heading that direction, I think you kind of have to continue with that direction. And you kind of have to look at the long term. We don't want to put 2 charging stations in our infrastructure for 2 if we need 12. The other piece of it is it'd be interesting from a board position to know, you know, over a 10-year period or 20-year period, what is the maintenance costs on a diesel drivetrain, and then take a look at what our battery cost would be, say, in 10 years, because that'll give us more of an apples to apples figure, because we got to look at it as a long-term investment.
Right.
So that's all I have.
Yeah, thank you. They said the batteries right now are like 30 to 35,000 to replace the battery. There's 2 batteries in it. You can order with a 3rd battery for a longer distance. But it, you know, it's fairly new technology. It's like everything else. You know, 10 years from now, it could be $10,000 or even less for a battery. Just like the price of the buses, we would hope would come down. But we absolutely agree with you. If we're going to do this, we're going to set it up for, you know, 10, 15 charging stations, which I don't think is going to affect electrical so much, except for the fast chargers need more power. So we're looking at that now with FCI contracted, putting a cost together, what it would cost to put a couple of fast chargers in. So if you had to bring a bus in and you needed one charged immediately, would have that capability to do that.
Yeah, my question actually kind of dovetails off of what Governor Parks was talking about, and is dealing with the facility. We're currently in the process of trying to upgrade and build and so on our transportation center. Adding more stations, does that significantly change our costs on that construction?
It's not, and FCI has been very good about working with us. We haven't got the finalized cost what it was, but for the slow chargers, it doesn't appear it's going to be a big change one way or the other. You know, we just, because we're fortunate enough that we are in the middle of building this, and so we can put all the underground electrical in while we're over there working. We don't have to dig up and run conduits and all that. The fast chargers, again, you know, we might have to upgrade a little bit for that. And then we also have to buy the fast chargers. That's a separate cost to the district. So we got to look into that a little bit. We've heard anywhere between $30,000 and $70,000 for a charger. So we got to really investigate that and look into it and see exactly what it would cost us to get those in there.
And my other question, we on occasion take some pretty long trips. I'm assuming the charge on the bus would accommodate there and back.
When they're fully charged and new, it's you get about 120 miles radius with it.
My question would be, do you know, I know we said that the price of the bus would be about $450, right around there, right? Does that price change if we pick a different style bus? Like if we're getting, you know, different passenger bus?
No, it's all the same. It depends, because you put more money into a special needs bus with the special needs equipment, so it equals to be the exact same.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have quite a few actually. First of all, I think we definitely need to look at a per bus cost and an overall cost to the district and what it will cost. Secondly, I have a lot of questions on the chargers. I work with electric fire trucks, and we're finding that most departments are downsizing their chargers from what they normally are being spec'd. For example, the city of LA has cut in half their chargers. They went from a 50 to a 25. So I think we should make sure we're looking at that appropriately. A couple things to know about this. It's a federal grant, not a state grant. And we have to give up a bus. A diesel bus has to be destroyed in order to take the ability for one grant. So it's a 1-to-1 trade, and I think that's important for the board to know. We're not going to grow our fleet by 1 to 13 buses. The other thing, and I don't know how much you guys have been involved in federal grants, but if you don't take them, you usually don't ever get the chance again. So unfortunately, this came as a surprise to us in a transition of administration. We, as a board, did not know this was coming forward, and I think that's important, but it puts us into a spot. So With that, I think we should look very closely at some finance options. That's very common these days. It doesn't bind another board. I know that sometimes becomes a concern, but the finance companies have worked all that out, and so we should look at options for that. Also, I would look very closely that we buy direct from the manufacturer versus a dealer. The reason for that is you get a 5.6 state tax rate versus if you buy it from a dealer in Phoenix, you're going to pay the city of tax of 8.9 or 9.2 or however much they can raise that to. So that can save us some money on the end. The manufacturer can always still work with the dealer to get them their part back, but we should never be buying local ever on a bus. That just should never happen. We should always be buying direct from the manufacturer. And if the manufacturer doesn't want to do that, there's another one that will. So we should look at that. I would like to know, we talked about 120 miles, and Ms. Dondi, I think you said our bus routes are usually how far?
On an average, they're 60 miles a day.
Okay, so we'd have to come back and charge a little bit, but we're okay.
Yeah.
But looking at the third battery for additional range is beneficial. So I would like to see some cost of that. One thing to keep in mind on these electric vehicles is typically there's almost no maintenance on them. You're changing out tires once in a while, and brakes, because of regenerative braking, you typically don't go through brakes near as fast. But I would like to ask on the buses how much other maintenance they have. And then also we need to find out if the manufacturer is going to be providing any factory level training or high voltage training, because our mechanics won't be able to touch this bus at all without high voltage training. That is a challenge for the district. Currently, I don't think we have anybody that's high voltage trained. Secondly, if we get somebody in, they start getting headhunted quickly. Right now, there is a large demand to find high voltage trained mechanics. So we need to make sure we have some very good language that protects us from that, and probably more than one in the event that person was to become ill or unable to work. We have to keep the buses on the road, because remember, it's 1 for 1. So we give up 13 diesel buses, we get 13 of the other ones back. The battery life, I think, is pretty consistent with what I've heard, 8 to 10 years. The 8-year warranty is very common. I would ask if there's any extended warranties that we can look at for these. That's pretty common to have them. And I would just say that, with the lack of required maintenance on these buses, the body should last longer than what we see from some of the other ones. There comes a time where it's just so expensive, but electric motors, it's what's been running in trains for years, and they go many, many miles. We may get longer time out of the buses, although sometimes technology catches up and new seat belts, new seating, we just have to move forward. I do agree. One of my fellow board members asked questions about the cost. I think we need to have a very good look at what our 10, 15, and 20-year costs of our diesel buses are. That should not be difficult to that should probably be able to be pulled up before the meeting's over, really. I won't expect that, but so we can compare that. And then another question I just have is when it comes time to change out the batteries in 10 years, how long is that process? My concern more is not changing them out in 10 years, but if something fails in 2 years, for example, our fire trucks take about 4 hours. So is this going to be the same, or will we be without a bus for days while we're waiting for that work and the sources to be done? With that, I don't have any other questions. I do have worked around electricity. There are thousands and thousands of electric school buses have been running in Europe for the last 5 to 7 years. They have had excellent luck, and I've been fortunate enough to be privy to a lot of those studies, and it's very, very good results coming back. I know, just for example, over in LA with that fire truck, they've used minimal amounts of fuel, laughable amounts of fuel, and it's one of the busiest trucks around. So they're definitely getting it, and getting the use and getting the benefits of the electricity. So those are the questions I have and my thoughts. Are there any more from you guys?
I have just a couple more things I'd like for us to look at. I don't know what the standard equipment is on these electric buses, but my question is, do they come with cameras and seat belts? They do come with cameras?
Yeah, we had one, board member Vicks, I don't think you made it, but there was one here, and there are cameras inside of it, but the seat belts are something that just is not not being put in school bus yet. It's not being required, and it's yeah, agree. Okay, anything else from staff on that one? If not, we'll move to our next item, 1.5. Thank you, Dondi. 1.5 is deferred maintenance, and Dr. Monroe, I'll let you kick it off.
President Todd, Vice President Parks, members of the board, we want to talk to you for a few minutes about our deferred maintenance. Right before I was hired, the Gordian Group was present to do a presentation on kind of deferred maintenance over the next 20, 30 years. Bob has been going through that presentation very carefully. When the bond failed, that changed the trajectory of some of our maintenance. So I asked Beth and Bob to really sharpen their pencils and say, where can we find money, because we're building School 8 and we need more than 25 million to build that first phase of the school. In addition, we'll have an incomplete transportation complex facility. We're building that in phases. So where can we possibly find some money without having the bond that failed? And remember, the override has nothing to do with these capital costs. And so we've been looking at deferred maintenance. So the board approved about 7.9 million into doing deferred maintenance projects around our schools in the district. Maybe not so much like a Blue Horizon, which is a newer school, maybe a little less at a Liberty, and a lot more at like an Estrella and a Freedom and a Rainbow, some of our older schools. And so, like I said, Bob has sharpened the pencil, and we think we've gotten it down to about $3 million, or close to $3 million, about some of the maintenance we can do over the next few years, while still being very financially efficient with helping with these other projects. And so you have some handouts in front of you, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Young.
Thank you, Dr. Monroe. So when the Gordian Group came out, they did an extensive survey of the district, and the first hard-to-read small list that was on there is the list that they came up with. And they pushed it out for, I think it's 35 years or something like that. And so I went through their recommendations, and then I put together a list of what they had on theirs for 2023 to 2029. And I just pulled off what we should actually be doing and what we report that. It's got to be me. Some things on the Gordian report that they recommended, we change out all the windows and frames in the school, change out all the doors and the door frames, change out all the sinks. Well, obviously the schools aren't going to do that. We don't, if they're broke, we fix them, we change them. And so I went through and pulled out all the items that I believe that we can do. And this is a fluid list. It's going to change often because things break, things wear out, and you need to change it. But taking Gordian's list, moving it to this other list, you can see we come up with about a $2.5 million project for 2029 going by Gordian. The last three items on the list that I made are new items that were not on Gordian's list, but we'll have those come up. They'll pop up. We need to do the roof that SFB won't pay for because it's exempt space. But we also will get more money in from SFB because we'll keep submitting for the building renewal grant, so we could lower this price as well. So we're not just going to spend this money because it's here and we don't need to go out and look for it. We're always going to look for the SFB for additional funding and go which way we can. The bar graph kind of shows you what money is recommended to spend at each school. Blue Horizon is not on here. It wasn't built when they did the study, and obviously it's a new school, so it doesn't need to be on here. Yeah, there was one gray one out there. Is there anybody see one that's got a gray bar on it? Yes. I apologize for that. I should have looked at it a little better after I printed them, but sorry. So the first one for $435,000 is Australia School. The second one for $390,000 is Freedom. The third one for $404,500 is Westar. The fourth one is Liberty School, $214,500. Fifth one is Las Brisas for $395,000. And the last one is Rainbow for $484,500. And so that's the recommended deferred maintenance plan that we have on that. I apologize, those schools weren't on the bottom. I didn't pay attention when I made the copy, so sorry. Any questions, comments?
The age of each school, do you know? Okay, if you could just do that, yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't bring that.
Yeah, so Bob, we'll get the exact age of the schools to you, and you can almost tell by the bar graphs what are some of the older schools. And later on this year, if the board is available, we'll schedule some facility walks with the board members so they can see exactly what we think we can do in the next 4 to 5 years with this deferred maintenance list. The hope is that it would free up money for elementary school 8. However, we want to make sure we value and we're taking care of all of our schools, whether it's carpet or bathroom remodels, and you'll see some of those things that are on the list here. And so I know Bob has reached out and kind of met with our principals and walked the site with them, and he's looked over the Gordian group. And so I appreciate his work as we're trying to, in the shadow of losing a bond, this is what districts have to do. You have to look very creatively at your budget. Just like when mom or dad loses a job, you got to look really creatively of how you can maintain that lifestyle. And so we wanted to update the board and kind of just make sure we're going in the right direction. If the board had a lot of questions or comments, or we needed to put this on a further agenda, but we're spending some time really trying to value engineer and save some money on these projects, but we wanted to bring the board in the loop. So if we're in the wrong direction or we're doing the wrong thing, then you guys can tell me, Dr. Monroe, we need to turn it around and do something a little different. But we think we have a solid plan here for the next 4 or 5 years. And again, I do think we'll come to the board about deferred maintenance, talking about a bond in the future. That's not the agenda item we're talking about, but I think that's a realistic thing here in the next few years to go back out to the voters, and not this year, but maybe the year after, to talk about these type of capital items and projects. So any thoughts or questions from the board?
I have one just that kind of came up, and it's on topic but a little off. I was at Blue Horizons, and the new floors that are in there are horrific. They're falling apart. They're spread apart. I don't want to see this on an improvement and capital plan in the future. Are we doing anything about that? Because that should still be under warranty.
Yes, it is on a warranty request with the contractor, so we will be fighting with that. We're not planning on repairing that. Or one thing you won't see in school number 8 is one of the sports floors that they have in the gym over there. We're not going to be putting those in.
Not so much a question as much as a comment. So thank you for doing your diligence on this. It is sad that, we didn't get, we failed the election with the override. So really, thank you for doing this and trying to whittle things down to what the necessities. And, this plan goes through 2029. To me, it looks like it's pretty much on the right track. A lot of these are ballpark cost estimates, right? So they could be more or less. We hope they're less, right? So, but as things come up, I appreciate you keeping us in the loop, because these are things that need to be taken care of. So thank you.
And I didn't emphasize this, but if the school facilities board will pay for it, we will go for it. Okay, you need to know that. I'm all about spending other people's money. So I want to be very efficient with our Liberty dollars. So if the school facilities board, which is funded out of our tax dollars from the state, if they will pay for these things, we will put the application in. So Bob just put in the application for some roofing at Freedom and a few other things the last few days. So as we look at this list, if the SFB will even take a chance at it and pay for it, we will shoot for it, and even get into the same room and kind of make our plea. So I've really appreciated that about Bob and Beth, their posture. I told them to be very aggressive with the school facilities board, because we want them to pay for our items as they should. So because there's a lot of communities like ours that aren't really successful in passing a lot of bond initiatives, and so we go to the state. And so Bob and I have gone to lunch with the school facilities board. We're trying to have really good relationships with them so that they can build and pay for our improvements, our maintenance for us.
Is there a way we can, at bare minimum, have this on, at least for the board to see on a shared document so we can see what the progress is on these items? And we may want to consider some sort of public view on this as far as what we're doing and what we're spending money on.
Yes, yes, I'll work with Dr. Monroe on that and we'll get it taken care of. Also, if this closes a few minutes before the board meeting starts, I'll run back and run a copy of the years that the school's off and bring them back to you.
Okay, members, if there's no more comments, we can take a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion, have a second.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. When I call your name, please specify your vote. Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Vice President Parks.
Yes.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that approved. 4 yes, 0 no. Our regular meeting will start at 6:30. We got to reset the room a little bit. And we'll show us adjourned now at 6:16 p.m. Okay, we'd like to call the governing board meeting to order for the Liberty Elementary School District today, January 29th, here at the Liberty Elementary School District Governing Board Room. We have 4 board members present. Vice President Parks, I got it right once. Board Member Bixler, Board Member Kenyon, and myself, Michael Todd. A couple housekeeping notes. We are starting a new program where we'll have a leader, student leader, each month joining us here on the dais. So Allison Sheffy will be here. You'll learn more about her shortly. And also tonight, we have a video crew from the Mesa Unified School District who's here, who's helping us produce a video that you'll see at future board meetings when we start. So thank you for Mesa for doing that. Allison, thank you for, or Addison, sorry, thank you for being here to join us. Our next item of business will be item 3.2, our Pledge of Allegiance, and Addison is going to lead us in that.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No pressure, Addison, but we have a record crowd tonight, so it must be you. I know it's not us, so thank you all for coming. Okay, our next item will be item 3.2, approve the regular agenda.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the regular agenda consistent with Board Policy BEDB and to temporarily suspend governing board policy with which this agenda may be inconsistent.
Do I have a second?
I'm sorry, President Todd, could I jump in and just ask that the personnel agenda be pulled?
They will pull that
Okay.
at the
perfect,
consent
thank you.
time. Yep. Okay, I'll need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. When I call your name, please specify your vote. Vice President Parks,
Yes.
Board Member Bixler,
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show that proof 4 yes, 0 no's. Next up will be our governing board update. Vice President Parks.
I had the opportunity to visit Las Brisas Academy for the coffee with the superintendent, and we had some nice feedback there. It was, it looks like the 4-day school week, the parents and the students are kind of getting into the groove, and it's real positive feedback so far. I got to spend coffee with the principal at Estrella, and we had a lot of questions about the budget and the new school, and I think we covered that today in our study session, so I hope people were watching. I have to kind of stress, and just to the parents out there, if the coffee with the superintendent or even the principal comes up, and it's really imperative to go to those, because it gives you an opportunity to talk directly one-on-one with the board members are typically there, and the principal's there, and on the superintendent coffee, the superintendent and some of the administration staff is there. So it'd be very helpful, because it also helps board members and the administration get the feedback we need, because we need the community and the parents' feedback so it can help us up here on the dais. So thank you. That's it.
Board Member Bixler.
Yes, again, real busy. It's been a while since we've met, so there's a lot going on in that interim. I also was at the coffee with the principal, and it was terrific. There was a lot of really good things going on at Estrella Mountain, and we had a chance to talk about all of them. The thing that stood out most to me was the discussion and how evident it is how that entire team over there is all rowing together. They're all going the same direction. Lots and lots of help coming in as far as volunteers. Terrific things going on over at Estrella Mountain. And it was really good to see that. Also participated in the building number 8 discussion. You heard a lot about that tonight. There will be another one. I suggest everybody try to make that meeting when they can, because it is worth going to and hearing about what we're up to here. I also was a part of the special education parent forum that occurred. For those of you who don't know about this organization, Raising Special Kids, they have an option for parents who are who have children that may or may not be candidates for the program they have there, but they do an IEP 101 that you really ought to be a part of if you have any anticipation at all of being a part of this. So please try to get their next meeting as well. There is a second one coming up for that, or a third one. I was part of the celebration for Coach Gilliland, who received her national certification, her teacher certification. Good job. It was wonderful. It was a lot of fun. She didn't know what was going to happen, and there was a crowd of about 7 of us that suddenly charged out onto the athletic field where she was working with the kindergartners, and I'm sure that she had some concern about this mob coming after her, but it turned out to be a real positive thing. So congratulations to Las Brisas and also to Coach Gilliland and what she's done as far as the work it takes to get that national certification. Went to the Estrella Mountain National Junior Honor Society Leadership Night, which was an interesting thing. They changed the format a little bit this year from what it had been in the past, and the kids ran it all. And it was a terrific night to see what they were doing. There was a lot of academic learning going on while this was happening. The kids were having a whole lot of fun, but they had to, they were challenged by the National Junior Honor Society as far as different stations they went to. Great night, great night. Looked like a wonderful turnout as well. Las Brisas, the coffee with the superintendent was also a terrific opportunity. We heard a lot of good things going on in Las Brisas. I echo exactly what Governor Parks talked about. Please come visit those. When you know that the coffee with the superintendent is going on, come on down and come and be a part of that. You learn so much by being in there. So, and finally, next I went to the district spelling bee and watched that. For those of you who don't participate in the spelling bees, you really ought to. They are exceptionally exciting. I do want to shout out Estrella Mountain. They swept it. The first and second place finishers for the district-wide spelling bee both came from Estrella Mountain, Liam and Piper Johnson, who was the champion. They will be going over for the district or state? Regional championship at Youngster High School. So again, if you've never seen a spelling bee at that level, go. It is wonderful. And finally, I want to join a huge crowd that was here earlier today, and I want to wish Dr. Monroe a happy 37th birthday, which we celebrated today. So.
×2. Almost. Board member Kenyon, please go.
I didn't have quite the available time to do all those things, and I'm glad you can. I was able to last Monday go to the Special Education Parent Forum, and that was a lot of fun. Seeing the turnout, I guess that was the highest turnout that they've had so far, and hopefully that momentum keeps growing for those of you who are interested in that. Yes, thanks to Carolyn from Raising Special Kids. She came in and provided, slideshows on her program that they have for resources for people who need a little bit of assistance. So that was really good. And just happy birthday, Dr. Monroe. Friday is Groundhog Day. I know down here in Arizona, nobody knows what a groundhog is, but I'm from Minnesota and we look forward to that day. So go look it up. It's fun.
Okay, I have a few things I'd just like to update everybody on as well. Some are repeats, but the School 8 design meeting that we had about a week and a half ago, it was a good turnout, good combination of staff and community members. So for those who were here, thank you. For those that didn't come, please consider coming. Even though your child might not be at school number 8, what you know about your campus will help us to make the next campus better. So if there's something you really like or something you really don't like on your campus, come tell us so we can make it better. The only way we get better as a district is feedback from the community. So that was a great one. Also, I attended the special education night. We had 23 parents and 4 board members present for that meeting. Phenomenal. And I just like to thank Ms. Kay Hamrick for putting that together. She's way back there in the back, but I really think she deserves a round of applause, so I'm going to start it and go from there. And she's saying thank you, but the thanks is all to her. She's had 2 of those. There's more to come, and we as a board, I know, are very interested in all children, so all of our students, so that's important. This past Friday, I was able to attend a bus tour with Dr. Monroe and Mr. Young for some Cantamia residents to look at our school. They in Cantamia are a retirement community. They don't have students at our school. They may not always know what's happening as far as building construction, as far as maintenance, deferred maintenance. So this was a great opportunity. We showed them the Estrella campus, which is 36 years old, and we showed them Blue Horizons, which is slightly over 36 months old, I think. So it was a pretty good contrast, and they could kind of see some things. And you know, many times it was, well, why don't you guys just put some shade up here? I said, we'll do that tomorrow. Give me your credit card. Well, how about this? Give me another credit card. Go borrow one from your husband. Let's go. And I'm picking on Donnie Bond if she's here, but great ideas, but we're limited by funds, and that is always there. But what I think they did see is a school that's Estrella that is very old. We've done a very good job, all the boards over the last 36 years of doing as much as we can and making the tax dollar go as far as possible to keep that school looking good. So we'll move from there. I also got the chance to attend, and we'll learn a little bit more later tonight, but the Department of Education for the state, the Board of Education recognized the Student of the Month, and it was Liberty's very own Carlin Farr, and was a great opportunity. I'd like to thank Ms. Murphy for making that nomination. It was really impressive to be there and know that out of hundreds of students that were nominated, Carlin won it from the whole state for this month. So it shows that great things are happening here in the district. We have some great news that keeps coming from Mr. Bob Young. This weekend I was pleasantly surprised, started getting some emails on some funds he's put in for the School Facilities Board. And I said, is this new? He says, no, we checked the box so you guys could get those emails properly. But since bringing him on, he has really done a lot with the School Facilities Board. And he told me a story on Friday just that we were a little held up with them, and they said, well, your books weren't so good from the past. He got them all caught up, got all the numbers in, and the audit's proper. So we're in good graces with them. He picked up from previous years and got that fixed. So really like to thank him for that. He's really hit the ground running. Again, congratulations to Coach Gilliland. We now have 2 teachers in our district who are national board certified. There are districts that are 5 or 6 times larger than us that don't have one. And my challenge to the staff is let's have 2 more and 2 more and keep going. It is really an arduous task to go through that process. It is not a bumper sticker club. There are some certificates and recognitions you get, and it's a sticker. This one is much different. I attended the ceremony last year with our science teacher, and it's grueling. So I understand why there's only 2, but we're going to get more. So again, congratulations. And I missed her ceremony. I was stuck at work and in traffic and couldn't get here. So let's see, the district spelling bee winners, I again didn't get to make that. I was doing another event that was really fun. We did it at the Rainbow Valley campus and at the Freedom campus, and we brought an electric fire truck, and we partnered up with the Buckeye Fire Department over at Freedom and the Arizona Fire Medical Authority down in Rainbow Valley, and the kids participated in an exploratory learning where they went and looked at the features of a traditional current fire truck and then all the features of the new electric truck, learning that it didn't start as electric, learning how it kneels, all sorts of things. So it was it was a full day. I was exhausted by the time the day that was over, but to the fire chiefs, Jake Rhodes, and over at from Buckeye, and then Arizona Fire Medical, Ashley Losh, really put together a great program, and the firefighters that came out were fantastic. They get inundated with some of these requests sometimes, and they start to be pretty mundane. These guys were excited, happy, and it was just a super fantastic thing. Then just strictly on a personal note, I just, community partnerships are something that I value a lot, and I had a friend from out of town who suffered her mother passed away, and she called and said, I need a pastor to do a funeral, and I live in Texas, and I don't know. So we called one of our church partners here who uses the Estrella campus, actually the Westar campus, the church at Estrella, Pastor Charles, and he stepped up to that and did a great ceremony. So a friend I hadn't seen in almost 20 years that was bringing her mother back from Texas to be buried with her dad at the National Cemetery, and appreciate just having a community partner to make that. So no connection with his daughter being here tonight, but I'm glad you were here so I could thank you. It turned out pretty well. So timing was good on several people's parts, I guess. But with that, that's all I have. And we'll move on to item 5.1, the school newsletters.
Yeah, President Todd, Vice President Parks, members of the board, attached are all the school newsletters. At the beginning of the year, I can answer, Natasha, Stephanie, and I, either one of us can answer any questions. Lots of exciting events happening, as the board has been able to attend quite a few. So all those newsletters are there for your view, and we can answer any questions you might have.
Members, any questions, comments? Okay, we'll move to item 5.2, which is going to be our governing board and superintendent recognitions. Dr. Monroe.
Okay, so I'm going to come down. This is my favorite part of the meeting. I'm going to grab this microphone here. Okay, let's try that. So I'm going to ask the board to come down as well because we're going to do some student recognitions. First, I'm going to invite Carlin to come up. So you heard a little bit about Carlin and this fantastic student. So I was privileged. I had a very proud superintendent moment. Carlin, come on up. You can stand right next to me here with the board. I want to introduce you to Carlin here, and her parents are here. She was recognized at the State Board of Education meeting. So just so you're aware, local school districts have governing boards, and the state of Arizona has a board. So they receive hundreds of nominations about phenomenal students, and they recognized Carlin from Liberty Elementary School. Thank you, Mrs. Murray, for making this possible. So let me read a little bit about her. She's in 8th grade, and on January 22nd was recognized at the Arizona State Capitol at the State Board of Education meeting. She was selected out of hundreds of nominees for her academic and her character achievements, both inside and outside the classroom. Let me tell you about those. She's the vice president of the National Junior Honor Society. She's an athlete. She's a straight A student. She has outstanding character, and she's always willing to help out other students. She's also heavily involved in agri-science, and she shows animals at the 4-H at the county fair, right? So can we give Carlin a round of applause for this recognition? Okay, our next activity, I'm going to hand the mic over to our board president, President Michael Todd, and we're going to recognize our students of the month. So students, be ready to hear your name and come on up here and stand with us and shake our hands. So President Todd.
Okay, super exciting times for us since we started doing this. And again, on behalf of Dr. Monroe and the governing board members, myself, we'd like to take the time to recognize 8 students from across our 7 schools. We do 1 school each month. Liberty Elementary School District is unique and special. These students really personify that uniqueness and how special we are out here. They are, each month, they're just amazing. So values that we look at are excellence and integrity. Excellence is exhibiting talent or quality that is unusually good and surpasses ordinary standards. They have high integrity in doing the right thing. Honestly, they work hard and exhibit caring. Because of their hard work and caring attributes, they make their school and classrooms and our district a better place. Thank you to our students and the families who are here to join us. When I call your name, if you could please make your way up here, and we'll recognize you. We'll give you a handshake and move you right down this line with a certificate, and we'll go from there. First up, Blue Horizons representative is Cash Ritchie. Looks kind of like a Brock Purdy Jr. right there. Maybe. He's probably better, actually. Okay, representing Estrella Mountain, AJ Nolasco. From Freedom Elementary, Kesley Davis and Marcelo De La Fuente. Is Marcelo here? No. Okay, seeing no. Okay. Next up from Las Brisas Academy, Charlotte Atherton. From Liberty Elementary, Roman Garcia. We're not afraid to start them young in this district. Okay, from Rainbow Elementary, Fate Elms. And from Westar Elementary, Jila Jones. Okay, now students, if we can get you to come join us, we'll take a big group family photo really quick.
Okay, so we have one or two more recognitions before we kind of take a brief intermission. First, I just wanted to echo what the board members said about our spelling bee winners. I congratulate all the students who were the spelling bee winners from their schools. That's quite an accomplishment. The stress, the ability to think on their feet, and mostly I'd like to congratulate Piper Johnson and Liam Perkins, both from Estrella, who ended up winning our school spelling bee. So that was pretty special. So congratulations to them. And the final recognition goes to our student leader tonight, as you can see sitting on my right, Addison Sheffy. She's been so great sitting here tonight. Let's give her a round of applause. I'm going to hand her the mic, but let me tell you a little bit about Addison. She's actually going to read something about herself and about Westar, which is the school that she attends, and then we'll take a brief intermission, and Mr. Bogo will give us a presentation on Westar. Addison's in 8th grade. She is the student council president at Westar. She also, just in case, so you know, she is the MC for kids at her church, the kids in kindergarten through 5th grade. She's in National Junior Honor Society. She frequently babysits, and one of her friends said about Addison that she's the first one to help in a situation, which I don't know if there's a higher compliment to pay an individual than someone who has a service-oriented heart. She says she's looking forward to high school, where she'll continue participating in student council, drama, as well as track and field. So let's have one more round of applause and welcome Addison.
Hi, wait, is it on? Okay. Hi, my name is Addison Sheffy. I am an 8th grader from Westar Elementary. I have attended Westar since 1st grade. Along with First, I am the first student council president of Westar, which has been a great leadership opportunity. But I wouldn't be able to accomplish this without the help of our great teachers and special education team. Yes, I am a product of special education. In 2nd grade, I was diagnosed with a processing disorder. Together, with the help of Miss Ross, we helped strengthen my coping skills to the point that I graduated special education this year. In addition, Westar has let me explore my creative side. like 3 plays I was in, which was Ice Reunion, Madagascar in 6th grade, and Descendants in 7th grade. Also, in 3rd and 4th grade, we had a talent show, and I did a comedy routine. And I can say for sure that I was very creative in showing my school spirit. I am also in National Juniors Honor Society. Finally, my friendships, which were built by strong by all of our dances and super fun field trips. Opportunities, outstanding teachers, and amazing friendships is what I will leave a great school like Westar with.
Okay, next will be item 5.3, the Westar Elementary presentation by Mr. Bogart.
All right, good evening, Governing Board President, Governing Board, Dr. Monroe, happy belated birthday. 37, All right. This year we captured in our summer retreat, catching our biggest wave of all, and we tied into what we think are the same characteristics of a surfer and a teacher. They're resilient, they're honest, they're humble, and they're ambitious. Oh, I got to do this. Which one? This one or this one? Oh. Good. All right. So these are our goals for this school year. They're tied to AASA 24 and our spring Acadian scores. I'm not going to read those to you. You'll see we have 2 goals in math and 2 goals in ELA. When we chose our goals, we determined what a year and a half's worth of goals would look like for all students. We're trying to do what we can to catch up from COVID. So those are our expectations. Improving student outcomes. This year, more than ever, we have created a strong partnership with teacher leaders to improve outcomes for students. Our teacher leaders have identified the needs of our campus and have responded with solutions. I'll give you an example. We have an ELA content lead identified the needs to create a common approach for language, for writing, and has led our vertical team in that work. Started from 3rd grade all the way up to 8th grade. The bullet points that are there, the last 3, we're going to go over those in a little more detail so you'll understand what those are. Okay? I'm going to turn it over to one of our other important colleagues. Come on, let's go.
So this year we amped up our timely data-driven intervention, K8. Oh no, this is Alicia.
Right there. All right, so timely data driven intervention, K8. So at Westar, we have multiple data points that we utilize to make timely decisions. Data points such as exit tickets, end of unit assessments, and teacher designed assessments. All of these data points give us a comprehensive look at each student's journey to proficiency. As Westar's instructional coach, I support our teachers in their efforts to collect, analyze, and to act on data in the most impactful way. Part of my job is to look ahead, to create documents, chase resources, plan ahead, and anticipate student and teacher needs.
All right, Mrs. Lovelace is our assistant principal. She's going to come up and talk about K4 reading.
Yes, so we have amped up our K4 reading instruction and intervention. One of the things we did this year is we're utilizing our reading interventionists to 4th grade instead of just 3rd grade like in the past. We just recently expanded our reading interventionist impact. She's now working with more students. So we thought outside the box, and our reading interventionist isn't just working with our most at-risk students, but our approaching students, our largest group of students during their walk to need time. We also were working to expand our volunteer pool to assist with that fluency work. Today, we were busy building fluency folders for every student. We reduced the group numbers during our 1st grade walk to read by utilizing our instructional coach to work with our most proficient students to because they deserve to grow too. And then that diminishes the number of students in those intervention groups that our gen ed teachers and our reading interventionist is working with. So our action plan per proficiency, we're really excited about this work. So our last PD Friday, we got together and we made a plan for proficiency. So our plan, we looked at our planning and our pacing, right? So what we had to own first was that we only had 38 days of instruction between that Friday and the state test. So we just had to take a breath for a moment there. So then in order to make a plan for proficiency for every student, we provided the teachers with some tools. So our instructional coach, Alicia, put together a really comprehensive tool. It had all the state practice tests and tools, the item specs, rubrics, reports tied to our Dreambox and Achieve resources, so the teachers could see right where their kids are and right where they need to go. We then provided them with a tool to organize the what, when, how, and where of their intentional planning for instruction over the next 38 days and beyond, of course. So the what could be, what essential standards haven't I taught? What essential standard have I taught, but everybody's not proficient yet? What test question are my kids stumbling over? When I look at my Try One data, as a campus, we uncovered that students struggle with multi-select, right? Select all of the correct answers. So that was one of the what. So then where might be, I'm gonna plug in a multi-select question in 2 exit tickets a week, so my kids aren't confused by those type of questions anymore. When they plan the when, that might be, we're going to tackle this during small group. This is going to be a part of my math workstations. This is going to be walk to need. This is tier 1 instruction. So they decide the when. We also put accountability measures in place. The document and the work itself was a huge accountability piece because the teachers were pouring their heart into that, right? And that's their time and that's their commitment to their students. But they also agreed to hold each other accountable in collaborative teams and have an accountability partner. And then they also determined, how do we know our plan is successful? What data points are we gonna grab along the way? What student work are we gonna examine so we know we're being successful? So the second part of that Friday, after they worked diligently, they looked at their Try One data, they built this comprehensive plan for student proficiency, and then we said, okay, now you know where you were, what you're gonna do. Now predict what your percentage of proficiency is going to be on Try Two. So every teacher looked at the work ahead of them, how their students had done so far, multiple data points, and said, because of what I'm committing to and my team's committing to, this is where we believe our students will be on the Try Two benchmark. So non-academic goals. We have some non-academic goals. Last spring, teachers gave us some feedback and they said, hey, what we're really concerned about is attendance. We feel like kids have not returned to coming to school like they were before COVID. Can we tackle this as a campus? And we said yes. So we built a systematic approach to addressing absenteeism. 3 absences, teachers call. 5, I call. 8 or more, you meet with me as the assistant principal. And really it's about unpacking why, right? Sometimes students need our help, right? My brother's in high school and he doesn't get up and I don't get dropped off on time and I miss math every day. But we just found that partnering with parents and making those calls have had a great impact. Also, we've tried to educate the community. What does statistics say? We've sent out letters. We had flyers for teacher conferences, social media posts. And our goal was that 90% of our students will be in school 90% of the time. And as of last week, we just pulled a random day. We were at 83%. High knees and seats 90% of the time. So we're really hopeful that by May we will reach our goal. The other non-academic goal is reducing classroom disruption. That's another thing the teachers brought forward is we had, that lower level consequent conversations with students, and then we have in-school suspension and out-of-school suspension, but we really lacked that middle range accountability system that was consistent. And so we implemented a systematic approach to utilizing lunch detention that teachers can utilize, plug in. We support them with passes, supervision, or administrators can use that. And what we found is we're just utilizing the 4 C's. Clarity. We went to every classroom and laid out expectations. Consistency. If you get 2 days of lunch detention for throwing airplanes, you also get 2 days of lunch detention for throwing airplanes. Communication. Teachers said, we want to know when we refer a kid what happened. So we've been consistently communicating what is the consequence with teachers and parents. Parents only partner with you if they know what's going on, right? And then that adds to the connectedness. We've been working diligently to connect the parents and have them feel like we're all in this together. So if a student does have to be out of school or in school suspension, there's always a restorative meeting, right? There's a reentry meeting where the teachers, we sit down and make a plan for a successful reentry into school. So we're really proud of the work. We've seen a 30% reduction in office referrals, grades 5, 8. And actually, I think our referrals in 8th grade went down from 118 to, I want to say 87. So we're really proud of the progress we're making in those areas. And we feel like it's definitely impacting instruction.
Oh, you took my paper. Oh, no, you didn't. No, you're okay. All right. Sorry. It's all right. So we have our STEAM night coming up. Since COVID, we've not been able to do much of those kinds of opportunities. So this is the Enchanted Engineering piece that we're going to be running on our campus on May 2nd. Our kids will get instructions on what they're going to be doing. It is actually an engineering project that they'll be doing, and they'll be making presentations in their classrooms for that evening. It's 5 to 7. And then the nice thing about it is that we're going to give the kids a passport, so they'll use a passport, so they actually will be traveling from one room to another, so that they can see some of the programs that are going on with some of the other classes. STEAM Camp is set. That's a yearly opportunity that we give for our kids to participate and bring STEAM to our community. You'll see that even some of the kids that are in there that are helping us out with the program are high school kids. They're kids who went to Westar, transition that as 6th graders you get to be a camp counselor, and then we've got kids from the high school that are also doing that. It's a very popular program. We open it up to any student who lives in the Westar attendance area, and we've even had the company that produces our T-shirts wants to bring their kids from Tempe. So it's really grown since we started it. And then the Westar Way, some of the fun stuff that we do on campus. We have all kinds of spirit days. We had Mrs. Benitez organized a Veterans Day where they came in on motorcycles, and then the STEM project that's in the bottom. So the kids have opportunities to do STEM projects on campus on a regular basis. So, and with that, I'll open it up to questions in case you have some.
Members, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Todd. Probably this one's for Ms. Lovelace. On slide 8, I noticed one of the bullet points there was utilizing an instructional coach for reading. Can you explain a little bit more about that and how they're utilized? Is it the classroom, individual? Can you be a little more specific?
Yeah, so traditionally the reading interventionist has been used for our most at-risk students, which generally at Westar is our smallest group of kids. So the majority of kids that require intervention are in what we call the approaching. So you might have 4 severe at risk and then 18 in approaching. And so the strategy when we dug into our data was to utilize our reading interventionists to run that biggest group, so that those, because those kids typically move a little quicker and can tolerate being in a little bit bigger group. Those at-risk kids really need that one-on-one, 2-to-1, 3-to-1. So then our general ed teachers can have just 2 or 3 of those kiddos. And then our instructional coach is taking our high flyers to work on Read Live so that they can grow as well. So that way we feel like we're getting more bang for our buck, if you will. So.
Absolutely. No, that's good news. I'm glad I like to see when the schools are using the available resources and leveraging them. So thank you. Slide 8, what you went over attendance and the support for, you know, what you're doing with attendance and kids who have high attendance numbers. What about tardiness? How are you handling the tardiness, and how are you supporting the teachers with tardiness?
Yeah, we are being aggressive with tardies as well. So 3 tardies, you get contact. So we built a form, we call Bailey our attendance clerk. If a kid at the beginning of the year, once they got 3 tardies or absences, she generated the form, sent it to the teacher contacted home. There's a place for them to put why. Right. So if a kid has a chronic ill, we're not going to bother that student, of course, or if a student's in illness, but the teacher contacts, then at 5, the document gets shared with the teacher and me, and then I contact the parent, and it's from a stance of support, right? What can we do to help your kiddo? Because our goal for the whole school year was 6 absences or less. When we had the kids set individual goals, but we said if you missed 2 a trimester, the kids we're like, that's reasonable. Like, I'm probably not going to be sick more than twice. So we're just trying to make parents sometimes are shocked when I call them at like 8. They'll be like, my kid's been out 8 times. You're kidding me. Like, really? And so sometimes I think it's just making them aware. And we've noticed once they're aware, the attendance does improve. But yeah, our tardies, like after COVID, were lined up out the door in the morning. And now there's just a handful of kids. So,
the other thing I think you need to remember is that school doesn't start, the late bell's at 7:30, so we were strategic about opening up our campus. So the buses arrive at 7 o'clock, so we start serving breakfast at 7 o'clock. Then we open the whole campus at 7:10. And then we do our Pledge of Allegiance in the amphitheater at 7:25. So that's really cut down on the number of kids, because the anticipation, our expectations, we want you at 7:25, and then just those last minute rollers that are coming in between 7:25 and 7:30, those numbers have fallen off big time because of how strategic we were with it.
Perfect.
When we started.
Now, this is kind of a strategic question. There's a point where we got to hold the older kids, we'll just say 8th grade, we start holding them accountable for, say, tardiness and absenteeism. What are you doing to work with the kid and say, this is going to be starting to be your responsibility to make it to school on time? Is there anything you're doing in a program where the kids are part of that program or process?
Yeah. We sent out 208 letters for kids who are tardy and absent. Okay, so we met with them, and on the letter it says, please call the school. So we're digging into the why, because as you know, they're not always late because of them. As an 8th grader, our 8th graders have specials first period. Okay, it can be strategic for them not to get to school on time because it's what they would consider a non-academic class. But we've really seen that fall off, and we're really having some conversations. So our champs team is awesome. If you are creating engaging work for them to do, they're all coming. So we're not lowering the expectations, but we're having conversations with them about.
Well, yeah, I just want to make sure that we're doing something, probably we'll just call it district wide, because there's a point, especially when you go into high school, you have a lot more freedom and parents aren't as much involved. I just want to know, kind of like, is there something we can do if we're not doing it? If we are doing it, what are we doing to get kids in part of that process and part of the accountability of, look, this is your problem too. You own part of this. So
most of our kids walk, ride a bike, or get dropped off. I mean, they're lined up to get picked up at school an hour before school, an hour after school. I mean, just before school's going to end the day. So it's really about educating parents to help them do that when they hit to the high school, because most of them will ride a bus or get in that long line at the high school, right? And that's a really long line.
Okay, one, just my last question here. You said the referrals have gone down, so, I mean, what was it, 40 or so? 30, yeah, 30%. And you were attributing that to some of the programs you put in place. I just want to make sure that the teachers are feeling like they're not going to get any backlash. And because see, that it always concerns me when we start seeing referrals go down. If it's for the positive reason what you're bringing forward, that's great. What I don't want to see is that the teachers are scared to do the referrals, and and make sure that they have the classroom support that they need. Because the last thing I want, and I've been outspoken on this, is I don't like classroom disruptions, and the sooner we can get a disruptive child out of a classroom, the better.
And that's what we do. That's really what we do. And so we include the student as part of that process. And then when we have a student who is becoming disruptive on a regular basis, we bring in the parent and the teacher, and we meet with them.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Any other questions?
Board Member Bixler.
Yeah, I also want to congratulate the staff and you, Mr. Bogart, on putting that intervention into place as far as student behavior. Yeah, it is kind of a tough call when you have a coaching conversation and the next step is in-school suspension. Yeah, something in between there seems like a really good idea, and it sounds like it's paying off, so congratulations on that good idea. I do have a question, though, specifically about exit ticket. Could you explain what that is?
So today's lesson is going to be about this is our objective. We're going to go through the instruction with that lesson, and at the end of the lesson, you're going to show me that you know it. That's an exit ticket.
And then they can leave the classroom? They can exit?
The exit tickets is what they do as their close. In the old days, a close, that's the close, and then we would assess it right away. And that way they know whether or not there's any reteaching or any grouping that they need to be able to do with those kids in the coming days.
Sounds like a good way for the teachers to keep a good eye on who needs additional assistance and who
The
doesn't.
thing about it is because we're doing vertical alignment, we're finding that teachers are having a lot more time at home because they're getting those exit tickets done in the moment. Right then, right there. They know right away who they are and those that are struggling. Because as you know, the best time to give kid an intervention piece is the moment it happens, just like behavior. We all teach it. The best time for it to happen is when it happens.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Board Member Kenyon.
I don't have a lot because a lot of it's already been answered, but thank you for this presentation. I like that you guys are so focused and honing in on contacting the parents, making sure they're educated on what's going on with their kids, especially when there's disruptions, when there's absences, when there's tardies, when, even going into the disciplinary action, right? When parents are involved, everything changes. So thank you for doing that. I'm looking forward to that, hearing the reports of the STEAM night. That's going to be fun to hear the reports of that, and hopefully we get a chance to swing by there and see how that goes. But I don't have a lot, like I said, so thank you so much for the presentation and the good work you guys are doing.
You're welcome.
You got any questions you want to ask him? This is your chance. You put him in the hot seat. Anything you want, I'll give you the mic.
Come
Your
on.
one chance.
He's a good principal.
How much did you pay her for that?
He's a good student.
Oh, now you got to pay him. See, it's equal. All right, I think all my questions were asked, so thank you for your time.
You bet. Congratulations, Addison.
Okay, our next topic will be 5.4 Acadience Literacy Data Report. Ms. Erica Daniel, who is our Director of School Effectiveness, Rebecca Wiley, Educational Services Coordinator, Holly Murray from Liberty Elementary School as our principal, and Bruce Naminsky from Blue Horizon principal.
I brought the whole gang tonight.
Perfect, and we'll just give time for everybody to clear out really quick, so we'll give them a little minute.
Got it. Well, good evening, Mr. President, Vice President Parks, and board members. As part of our ADE Move On When Reading, we administer the Acadience Learning Online 3 times a year, at the beginning of the year, middle of the year in December, and at the end of the year. This data is crucial into monitoring student learning and intervening when students are below benchmark. The reading interventionists, classroom teachers, identify when a student needs additional intervention based off of these reports, and they dig deeper to find the learning target. Tonight, we are going to look at the data in several ways. First, we're going to look at fall 23-24 to winter 23-24. So this is the same cohort of students. And then we are also going to compare winter of last year, 22-23, to winter of this year. The winter to winter composite tells a story of increased student achievement in all grade levels, kinder, first, second, and third. From middle of the school year, like I said last year, to middle of the school year this year. Before we start, we wanted to remind you of some key vocabulary terms that will help orientate you to the data. So when we use BOY, it means beginning of the school year. When we use MOY, it means middle of the school year. And when we use EOY, it means end of the school year. On all slides, kinder, first, second, and third, they're going to follow this format. So the graph is a multi-year histogram. It represents data over 5 school years. The orange bar represents this current school year of data. So when we look at this kindergarten data, which I'm struggling to see, at the beginning of the year, kindergarten started at 30% at or above benchmark, and currently they're performing at 62% at or above benchmark. In the boxes on the right represent the number of students. 95 students at the beginning of the year were at and above benchmark, and now 236 students are performing at or above benchmark. Oh, that is nice. Yeah. Kinder has doubled in students achieving at or above benchmark. When we compare last year's results, so you're going to look at the middle of the year to the middle of the year, 57% of our students were at or above benchmark, and this year we have 62% at or above benchmark. So orange beginning of the year to orange middle of the year is the same cohort of students. And then in the middle of the year bars, the green is last year and the orange is this current academic year. Kindergarten, this is the benchmark data broken down by site. On the left-hand side, you're going to see the district data is 62% of our students on average are at or above benchmark. Estrella is leading the way with 71% of their students at or above benchmark at the middle of the year. And then to the left of the bar graph, you're going to see the raw numbers. So 237 students are at or above benchmark, and 62 students are approaching benchmark, and 84 students are at risk. Now for first grade data. At the beginning of the year, first grade, we had 52% of our students reading at or above benchmark, and now we have 53% of our students reading at or above benchmark. This isn't a big growth percentage. However, the measure completely changes in first grade at middle of the year. They start out the year and the qualifying measure is reading nonsense words, which is word reading, CVC. And at the middle of the year, they continue being measured on nonsense word reading, but now text is involved. So they go from word reading to seeing a whole page of text and having to read that fluently. So when we look at last year's data, at the middle of the year, we had 50% at or above benchmark, and this year it's 53% at or above benchmark. This year, the district average was 53%. I wanted to recognize Estrella's first grade scored far and above the rest of the district with 82% at or above benchmark, leading the pack. This is a cause for celebration, as we always strive for at least 80% of our students reading at or above benchmark with Tier 1 instruction. They did it, and I'm super proud of them. To support reading fluency, first grade teachers are focusing on increasing sight words because the majority of their text is made up with sight words. So they need to be able to read them without having to stop and lose meaning in the text. In addition to adding oral reading fluency practice throughout the day and receiving specific feedback. Again, on the left is the percentage of students at or above benchmark, and on the right, it breaks it down for at and above benchmark, approaching benchmark, and at risk.
Erica, if we could just go back, you're clarifying that the table on the right is the number of students, not the percentage of students, correct?
Correct, it's the number of students. Okay, now we're going to take a look at second grade data. At the beginning of the school year, they had 63% of their students scoring at and above benchmark, and currently they're at 59% of their students scoring at or above benchmark. And the numbers are 263 students at the beginning of the year were at or above benchmark, and middle of the year they're at 251. Now, when we look at middle of the year and middle of the year, last year we were at 56% of our students scoring at or above benchmark to 59% of our students scoring at or above benchmark. Second grade teachers are tasked with explicitly teaching their students to accurately and automatically decode 2-syllable words and increase their time in text throughout the school day. Ooh, sorry. Here's the second grade benchmark for the different sites. The district average is 59% at or above benchmark, and Estrella is performing at 81% at or above benchmark. Again, a huge celebration for hitting 80% at or above benchmark. The left-hand side is the percent of the students at or above benchmark, and the right-hand side details the number of students performing in each category. Let's take a look at third grade. At the beginning of third grade, we had 60% of students scoring at or above benchmark, and now we have 57% of our students scoring at or above benchmark, which equates to, at the beginning of the year, 271 students, and middle of the year, 266 students at or above benchmark. When we look at middle of the year to middle of the year, we started last year with 51% reading at or above benchmark, and this year we're at 57% at or above benchmark. This is only a slight decrease. When we compare last year's results, third grade is focusing on comprehension. This is measured through RETEL and MAISE. MAISE is a comprehension assessment focused on the sentence, paragraph, and text understanding. So it's a really big switch. Third graders need to have control of phonetic skills. They need to be able to apply them to multisyllabic words automatically so they maintain meaning when they're reading. Here is our site data. Our district average was 57% at or above benchmark, and Estrella was at 73%, and Westar was close behind them at 72%. Again, the left-hand side is percent of students at or above benchmark, and the right-hand side is number of students placing in the performance categories.
So now we're going to take a look at a little bit more
same data, but looking at it in a different way. So one thing that we're going to look at is called Pathways to Progress. And this is a tool for interpreting our Acadian score that provides an evaluation of individual student growth or improvement over time compared to other students with the same level of initial skills. Pathways to Progress report is an opportunity to adjust our instruction to meet the needs of our students not making adequate growth. We're also going to look at another report called Effectiveness of Instruction. And this report provides a focus on the relationship between instructional methods, the learning activities, student performance, and teaching at the correct level of difficulty. The goal of this data report is to identify what's working, what's not, and where adjustments might be needed. It's about continuous improvement in instruction for better student outcomes. So I'm going to talk you through all of this data on this page. So hang with me here because we're going to talk about a lot of numbers here. So when we analyze the Pathways of Progress report, so we're going to look on the left side of the screen first, we focus on the question, why are my students not making adequate growth? This report's going to show the data comparison between students who started at the exact same place and how much growth they have shown since the beginning of the year. Teachers use this data to drill down into each student not making adequate progress and then identify trends and needs. Once we have answers to these questions, teachers have the opportunity to adjust their instructional groupings to meet the needs of these students. So on the left, you're going to see kindergarten Pathways to Progress. The district average is 74% of students making typical and above typical progress. Below the district, you'll see how each school did with the same data sets of typical and above typical growth and below typical progress. The reading interventionists at each site help the teachers to dig deeper into this data to identify what trends and patterns they see and make adjustments to instruction. These cycle meetings happened just this last week and new instruction started today with the beginning of cycle 4. The data on the right now shows effectiveness of instruction for kindergarten at the district level. We can look at this data at the district, the site, and the teacher level. If a teacher has students who are well below benchmark or below benchmark and are still at the same level at the next benchmark period, that's a sign to us that the student may not be responding to instruction and appropriate intervention is needed. This report is read left to right. So I'm going to try to help identify here where we're at. So we're going to start here over on the left. Each box contains students who are in the same category at the beginning of the year. The colors indicate growth or decline. In the well below benchmark, you see 203 students started in the well below category here at the beginning of the school year. At the middle of the year, only 68 students remained in that well below category. That's represented by the red coloring on this report. 45 or 22% moved up to below benchmark, which is yellow. 39 or 19% moved up to at benchmark, which is green. And 51 or 25% moved to above benchmark. In the next box here, you can see below benchmark. 70 students started here. Now only 9 remain in this category. 5 or 7% of students dropped down to well below, 9 remained at below benchmark, and 20 moved up to at benchmark, and 36 or 51% moved to above benchmark. Now we'll take a look at benchmark students. This represents 49 students at benchmark at the beginning of the year. We want to hold these students at benchmark as the expectations increase each benchmark period. Of the 49 students who started at benchmark, 9 or 18% of them remained at benchmark, and 36 or 73% of them moved to above benchmark. You'll also see 1 student who fell to well below, that's in the red, or 3 or 6% who fell to below benchmark. This final box on the far right represents above benchmark, and the goal again is to keep these students at this level. Here you can see we kept 40 of the 45 students at above benchmark. 2 students fell to well below, 1 student fell to below benchmark, and 2 fell to benchmark. It's important to look at this data at a high level, but it's also even more important to drill down into each teacher to see where students are not responding to instruction so we can make those appropriate adjustments. Now we'll look at first grade in the same way. In Pathways to Progress, you see the district average is 56% of students making at least typical or above typical growth and 44% below typical growth. Below, you can see Estrella, Freedom, and LBA are above the district average. As first grade teachers dug deep into their data, they noticed which students can now read short vowel words and which students are beginning to read connected text. This is a pivotal time in first grade when students are transitioning from that word reading to text reading. We look at each child's data to determine why they are scoring below typical growth. We can take a look at the effectiveness of instructional support data now. Here we see 137 students started the year well below benchmark. 107 or 77% of them remained below benchmark. 22% moved out of the well below and into higher categories. Below benchmark, that's that second box here. We see 61 students at the beginning of the year. 63% stayed or dropped to well below. 37% moved up to at or above benchmark. This is a direct indicator that students have not made that transition from fluently reading CVC words to text. Looking at the at benchmark category, we see 67 students started the year at benchmark, 69% remained at benchmark or moved up, and finally, of the 159 students who started the year at above benchmark, 75% of them remained above benchmark. This is a huge celebration in first grade as these students are able to read connected text now. This data shows that we are needing to adjust and intensify instruction for those students who are well below benchmark. Catching them up becomes more and more difficult as the years progress. We want our first grade students leaving as proficient readers. Now we'll take a look at second grade. Looking at the Pathways of Progress, you see that 52% of our students are making typical and above typical growth, while 48% are showing below typical growth. Again, we have to drill down further into the data to determine where students are not making that growth. In second grade, it could be oral reading fluency, accuracy, or retell. Accuracy is impacted when students do not have control of syllabication and sight words. Teachers are using this data to inform instructional groups and to intervene at the point of need. Looking at the effectiveness of instructional report, we see a similar pattern to first grade. Our well below benchmark students, we have 91% who remained well below. And in the below benchmark category, 70% remained below or dropped to well below, and 30% moved up. Looking at benchmark category, we see 78% stayed at benchmark or moved up to above benchmark. This is great to see as the benchmark is continuing to rise and students kept their benchmark status. Finally, we look at the benchmark or above benchmark. Of the 161 students who started the year above, 122 of them, or 76%, remained above benchmark. This indicates that instruction is meeting the needs of these students. Instruction was recently adjusted for all students in the Walk to Read cycles. Small groups are formed and goals are established, and instruction started today for those new learning cycles. Now we'll take a look at third grade. Looking at the Pathways of Progress, you'll see the district average is 68% with typical and above typical growth. 32% are below typical. Looking at the effectiveness of instructional support, of the 152 students, you see at the well below benchmark, 89% of them remained in this category. And in the below benchmark, 52% of them moved up to benchmark and 48% remained. Of the 105, you can see 76% remained or moved up. And in the well above benchmark category, 86 remained above benchmark. Overall, this data reminds us that we need to be mindful of the students who are performing below benchmark and well below. Instruction should be targeted to specific needs of the students in order to close those gaps as quickly as possible. Our goal is for third graders to leave the year ready to transition from learning to read to reading to learn. And now Erica's going to share some highlights.
So I want you to take a moment and read about just some of the amazing accomplishments happening across our district. Oh wait, we have more highlights. These are just some more of the major accomplishments our K-3 teachers, resource teachers, reading interventionists, administrators, and instructional coaches have achieved. We are honored and proud to work with such dedicated colleagues. This slide outlines the district's action plan to support sites and teachers to increase student achievement. And now we are going to hear from two sites, Liberty and Blue Horizons, on their specific site action plans constructed with their grade level teams, reading interventionist, to address site-specific data. And Holly Murray is going to go first for Liberty.
Good evening, Dr. Monroe, President Todd, governing board members. I am here to discuss our mid-year action plan at Liberty Elementary School. So there were many celebrations already on there, but that is where I wanted to start. We look at our data in two different ways. We look at proficiency data, which is what Erica covered at the beginning of the presentation, and then also our growth data, which Rebecca covered more with our progress to pathways. So both of those are equally important for us to look at because proficiency shows us where students should be at benchmark, but those growth measures also show us if our instructional practices are effective and if we are moving students. You could have a student come in at the beginning of the year at 0 and they gain to 70%. They would still be below benchmark, but that could be your highest growth score of your school. So you want to acknowledge all of those growth pieces as well. So some of our specific celebrations that we saw at Liberty were kindergarten had 78% of their students show expected or above expected growth. Second grade had 25% well above expected growth, and third grade had 62% at typical or above typical growth. With our site action plan specifically, as you can see on our slide here, we divided into our grade levels and how we're addressing those by grade level. So we've been creative. Liberty's unique because we only have 1 to 2 teachers per grade level. And so in kindergarten and first grade, we saw some similar skills that students needed between those two, such as phoneme segmentation and blending. And so we combined our Tier 2 intervention so that we could have additional staffing and support with those needs. With having small groups, then we could have 5 teachers instead of just the 3 by having them all together. And that started today. That was our first day today of the cycle. In first grade, we have a challenge with student growth. And so as part of our action plan, we departmentalized to help 1 teacher focus on Tier 1 reading instruction to increase effectiveness and that targeted support with the teachers. We also saw that our students were struggling with their oral reading fluency scores, both with accuracy and retell. So we implemented fluency folders to increase time in texts and genres. And then that way we can provide specific feedback to our students weekly, set student goals, and practice those retell strategies, so that real comprehension of reading. In second and third grade, we also created a similar plan where we combined for Tier 2 intervention, so having second and third grade together to add additional support. And with that, we were also able to include our CHAMPS teachers because they had some open time during that period. So that added 2 additional staff members for that walk to need. With that, we saw a significant split in both 2nd and 3rd grade with students who are above benchmark and then well below benchmark. And so as part of that plan, we are enriching the students who are above benchmark through complex text and comprehension with Achieve 3000. And this will challenge our students with higher level thinking skills and focus on inferring, making connections, analyzing text, creating. And at recent conferences, we also provided parents with updated data points and some strategies that they can work at home with students as well, because they are our best partners in education. For continued needs at Liberty, at the teacher level, we see a need for Tier 1 coaching, as well as actionable feedback with their Tier 2 centers and the extended transfer time. And then this will come from both myself and our instructional coach, Miss Goodyear. And Miss Goodyear will specifically be working with 1st grade on that student-centered coaching cycle as well, where the teacher and the instructional coach focus on a standard, they create an assessment to evaluate mastery, they co-plan and they co-teach, and this collaborative effort really helps with that student achievement. As a school, we'll continue to monitor growth bi-monthly with our progress monitoring data at the individual student level and the teacher effectiveness level, so looking at both proficiency and growth. And Ms. Goodyear and myself will have our laser focus on K-3 to ensure students are being provided every opportunity for success. Liberty will continue to remain flexible with our strategies and action plan as results are based on student need. I'm a firm believer that every student is capable of success, and it's our staff's mission that we continue to cultivate student success. I look forward to providing an update later when I do my board presentation in April. Thank you.
Thank you. It's also my privilege to be here with our governing board, Dr. Monroe, Natasha. Thank you. One of the things that I was excited about when I did this was, before I even get to my slide, which I should probably click to, here we go, is Holly and I did our action plans independently. We worked with our own teams of teachers, our coaches, and then we submitted them, and I got to see Holly's and she got to see mine. It was exciting that a lot of the things that she is doing at Liberty, we're doing at Blue. And I think that that speaks to our district, the continuity between all 7 of our schools. If we preach the idea of giving all of our students, no matter what neighborhood they live in, what area they're in, the same guaranteed and viable curriculum, we're succeeding as a district, personal opinion. So I was very excited to see that. A couple of celebrations that I want to share before I give you our action plan briefly. Our kindergarten teachers. So at the beginning of the year, our students, and they come into us and we get what we get. We've not given them any instruction. We assess them the first week or 2 in. We had 26% of our students at the beginning of the year in kindergarten who were at or above benchmark. So coming in through very little education of ours, we got about a quarter of the students that are where they need to be. Not where we want to be, obviously. That second set of data came back mid-year, and our kindergarten teachers had taken that 26% and turned it into 64%. That's a 38% increase. I cannot, in my years, I just cannot stress how a 38% increase in half a year is something to celebrate. And we were strategic about that. We knew that that 26% coming in needed to have a team of teachers that collaborated, that were instructionally sound. And we did this when we made staffing decisions last year. 3 of those teachers in kindergarten are brand new to our team this year. But we made what we think were the right calls in hiring those teachers, and they collaborated, and boom, that's what we saw. So it's always a challenge when you're bringing in new people, and we brought in many new people at Blue, but we're seeing the success. 1st grade, and if you go back and you look at 1st grade, that's an area of need, not just at Blue, but in our entire district. That's where some of our scores are at their lowest. And Blue's no exception to that. But in half a year, I'll try to make this sound as clear as I can, in 1/2 of a year, our students in 1st grade grew on average, when you take all of the students, 1.5 years academically. So half a year growing 1.5. If we repeat that and we go 1 year and we can grow them 3 levels academically, we know those 1st grade numbers both at Blue and in our district are going to turn around quickly. And again, lots of new teachers at Blue in those positions, but they've come together, they've melded well. what's the most important thing for our students? The quality of instruction. So we continue to look at that. One thing that Natasha always says, and it stuck with me early, and Erica always says, we can be data rich, which we are. I've never been in a district that has more data at its disposal. You can drown in numbers in this district. But if we're data rich and we're decision poor, we're not doing anything with those numbers. We can take all the great things we have at our disposal, but we have to make solid, concrete decisions for our teachers. I believe this district and Blue joining in are doing that. So very quickly, our action plan in kindergarten, 4 steps to that. We have coaching cycles, and you'll see some redundancy again with what Holly presented at Liberty. With our 2 lowest cohorts, and what I mean are what groups are we seeing mid-year are not growing the quickest? What support can we provide them in terms of staffing? We have our coaches that go in and do that. We're hitting those areas where we need to. And it's not just to say, and I want to make this a valid point here, it's not just to say that we take our lowest students and put our best resources there. What this says is all of our students at Blue are all of our students. We are mutually accountable for that success. So if I have a student and they're struggling to grow, and I know that one of my colleagues, or I know I have a coach or a reading interventionist that can come in, can co-teach, and can give me ideas on how to reach that particular student or that particular group of students, we're going to do that. The teacher or the student in classroom A also belongs to the student in classroom B, C, D, and E, and so forth and so on. I stress that not just for our grade levels, but also vertically. Our kindergarten teachers will belong to our first grade teachers shortly. So we need to be strategic on how we meet, how we plan vertically, and how we group those students. Applications of reading and writing components in core instruction as well as walk to read. I'll come back and I'll mention walk to read. I know Holly said that already. I mentioned some of our reading intervention support going into the classrooms, not just pulling small groups of students, which they do, but going into the classrooms and providing a co-teaching experience for that entire group of students. You heard it at the Westar presentation. That means our reading interventionist isn't just touching the students and the needs that have the biggest areas for growth. They're touching all of our students, our tier 1 students, our tier 2 students, and they can benefit from the expertise that our reading interventionists bring. Go back on that. Also addressing the needs of our monolingual students. We have several students in our building that started the year and have come to us throughout the year. They don't have any knowledge of English, can say a couple of words and that's it. And we throw them into a room and we're teaching our students in that language of English, and we're expecting them to learn and grow. So how are we reaching those needs of students? Well, we're focusing on the kinesthetic pieces that teachers can bring. So look at my lips, look at what I'm saying, watch, sound out the words on my arms, doing those types of things that we probably never experienced when we were growing up, but meeting the needs of those students who anything they hear in English is foreign to them. We are responsible for those students just as much as we are for the students who come to us and are 3 or 4 grade levels above where they should be. In first grade, an emphasis on fluency folders. Again, that's something Holly mentioned. Continuing to immerse our students in text, using flashcards, using small group instruction. Those fluency folders, by the way, are just continuing to have students focus on a passage day after day after day, so they're getting it down. They know that vocabulary, they're reading it more fluently, giving our teachers a resource that our coaches and our reading interventionists have been great about giving, so they have additional resources to use. Strengthening that small group instruction, whether it's through a coaching cycle, as I've already mentioned, targeting small group transfer, and basing all of that on student needs. Continuing to solidify tier 1 instruction, that is the cornerstone of a successful school. So looking at our teachers who are those master teachers and having them not just bottle up what they do and keep it in their classroom, but in their collaborative teams share these ideas with one another. And pair our biggest needs students again with our most skilled instructors. Again, I don't want to come back and be too redundant, but that's not saying we're putting our lowest students with our best teachers, but that mutual accountability piece. All of our students are all of our students. That is a philosophy that I know Blue has accepted and is accelerating on, and I'm excited about that. In second grade, focusing on a reading for comprehension. So in second grade, we're moving not completely off of that idea of reading for fluency, but now we need to know, what are we reading? What is it? How do we make sense of what we're reading? How can I read a passage and then go to my teacher and say, this is what I learned, this is what I understood? So reading for that comprehension, that's something that our reading interventionists continue to collaborate and assist us with. That double walk to read cycle, you've heard several people talking about how that started today. And walk to read is simply a time where, as I've said before, I may have 20 students in my classroom, but I may keep 5 of them and I may send the other 15 to the other teachers in that grade level or to a reading interventionist, so that there are different groups of students with needs that can get specific targeted instruction. We do that once a day. We know in the areas that we need to grow, we need to double it up. So we double it up in first grade and we're doubling it up in second grade. We've seen results from that. And then continuing to progress monitor for retail. Progress monitoring, if you're not aware, is having a benchmark number, setting a goal for a student, maybe for 6 weeks, for 8 weeks, and then assessing that student, very short, 1, 2, 3 minute assessments, to see on that 8-week journey, are they growing? Have they flatlined? Are they declining, so that we can adjust that intervention, continue to benchmark them, and have those students' goals met? In third grade, 6-Minute Solutions is a very structured program that breaks down a 6-minute period by minute and says, this is what we're going to do for our students. There's some partnerships there. There's some collaborative work there. There's some peer work in there, which at third grade, we want to get our students to be comfortable with. And then accelerating our Reading Horizon pacing. We took a look at third grade. We use Reading Horizon. Many of you have seen it when you visited our classrooms. And we noticed that in third grade, our pacing was behind where it needed to be. We accelerated that pacing. We jumped in. We said there's some lessons here that we can quickly go through. There's some lessons that we can skip, not in a bad way, but to get to other things so that we are teaching our students at grade level, which we firmly believe we must do. If we're teaching a 5th grade student, 2nd grade standards, they will not grow. They must learn at the 5th grade standards, no matter what their ability is. So these action plans were exciting for us, looking forward not only to continuing to create other ideas, but to implement them as well.
So as you can see, we have a lot of data, but not only are we analyzing the data, but the teachers are going straight to action aligned to the needs of the students. So lastly, any questions?
Members, any questions?
Yeah, it's interesting here. I kind of noticed a theme. The schools who we're seeing really good growth in are using additional resources, reading interventionists, taking staff wherever they can to support. Westar's using one of their coaches for that. I talked to Ms. Boris. I know she's using some extra resources at her school. And we heard here Blue and Liberty are using additional resources. I think that is critical for the board to hear and understand moving into our budgeting for next year in additional resources, and especially in reading and math intervention and how critical they are. So I just thought I'd bring that up as a point because we're seeing success in those schools. So I had a question on your data points. How much of the data that you're receiving, that you're using your data points, is coming from the Achieve 3000?
With K3, only third grade has a data point with Achieve 3000.
Okay, so it's the only one. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, I also have a question. Principal Murray had talked about their intervention plan, and one thing that was mentioned that was departmentalization of the student instruction. Now, in my world, departmentalization means you have content area experts. So social studies people teach social studies, ELA teach ELA. At second grade, which is where I saw that appear, does that mean something different as far as departmentalization? Is that by student ability?
No, they did departmentalize, but it was in first grade. So they have 2 first grade teachers, and each teacher has a strength, and they went with that strength. So the teacher, I hope I'm saying that correctly, the teacher that stood out in ELA is teaching both sections of ELA. The teacher that stood out in mathematics is teaching both sections of mathematics. That they are well planned, and they know their content deeply. So therefore, with clarity, they are more effective.
Right. Yes. It seems like an interesting model. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out.
I believe Estrella does this model as well.
There's a lot of data there. Thank you. Thank you for everybody involved being proactive in this and doing what we can for these kids. Obviously, we have to focus on those who are struggling. There's a lot of kids still struggling, right? We look at those numbers and, 30-40% of the kids are not where they should be. So, excuse me. Just really focusing on those kids and what we can do. I know there's a lot of highlights there. There really is, and I don't want to take away from that from all these schools. Going back to the graphs at the beginning, looking at the previous years, we can see where COVID hit. Prior to COVID, we have just that 1 year, right, of data right there. Hopefully, in most of these, we're trending up. We're trending towards where we want to get past that, and we really, really, really have to focus on that, get these numbers.
We are trending up when you do middle of the year last year to middle of the year this year. Yes.
I know there was a couple where it dipped a little bit, but just correct me if I'm wrong, but beginning of the year assessment assesses the kids here, middle of the year assesses them here, end of the year assesses them here. So it's not apples to apples, right? So it's a different assessment of how much they're growing throughout the year.
There are different benchmark numbers that they have to hit at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. And one thing that is really significant is in first grade. It is a different measure that's added at middle of the year. They go from assessing word reading and fluency with word reading to text. That is a huge jump for students.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I would just reiterate what Board Member Kenyon said. We certainly have seen some numbers go up, and I commend the staff for that. However, we are by no way near where I would like to be, or where I think all of us want to be. So we have to continue to chug uphill. It's a long road to climb. I believe that our staff can do it. I believe that this board is willing to provide you with all the tools necessary to make that happen, along with our administration, who I know Dr. Monroe has set lofty goals for this district. One of many reasons why he is our superintendent. So with that, I would just say keep up the work. We still have a long way to go, and we want to recognize that. And I see staff nodding their heads, so I think we all agree with that. Really quick though, Mr. Naminsky, I'm gonna put you on spot for just a second, but it's a good spot. I think at one point recently you mentioned to me you have a emergency cert teacher that has seen some pretty good progress in, I think it was reading, right?
Yeah, we have an emergency cert teacher in a different grade level than we presented tonight, who came in, was close to a year and a half away from their presentation, has done wonderful things in our fourth grade level. Right. So I think what we've highlighted that is if we've got some people who are committed to the program, who are committed to finishing the program in a timely way, and we're seeing great results from them, they're teachers that definitely we want to continue to take a look at and not hint at that.
Yeah, and I just wanted to give a shout out to that teacher, and I don't know her name, but just you said they made great strides. And so when we have an emergency cert teacher who came in COVID, has stayed with us, and is really doing the job, that's just, that deserves some
These
praise.
are often teachers that come in 2 weeks before school starts, 2 weeks after school start. Right. In the case of the one that I'm referring to, it's 2 weeks after school started in fourth grade, and didn't miss a beat, and took their lumps a couple weeks and got used to it, and now couldn't be more satisfied with what we're seeing in the classroom, and students are projecting that. So it's a great opportunity.
And we're seeing growth in her classroom. So
yes,
by all means, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Members, if we have no more questions, we'll move to public comment. Making sure no more? Okay. We have one request for public comment. It's Ms. Donnie Bond. As a reminder, you have 3 minutes. We'll start a timer for you, and we just ask that you abide by that 3-minute mark.
Wait. Okay. Has my time started?
It'll start when you start talking.
To the school board, to President Todd,
to Dr. Monroe, Superintendent, and to Director of Operations, Bob Young. I just want to say thank you. We had a wonderful tour last Friday. We requested this, and as soon as they could set it up for us, we were able to do that. I am a resident of Goodyear and Cantamia, and I'm trying to get our retired residents to maybe take on a project. So one of the comments that we made that was given to me on the tour was that it was an eye-opening tour. We haven't been in school for a while. I won't admit how long, but a while. And so, we realized the differences between the needs at the Estrella Mountain Elementary School versus the Blue Horizons, which is, brand new. Stark differences, but wonderful schools in their own right. And we heard good things from both schools, from their principals and from some of the teachers that we saw coming in on Friday, which was their day off, working and just diligently. I would just like to say I'm blown away by all the IEP reports and all the things for the special learning, because I have had a daughter that was dyslexic, and I also had a grandson with ADHD and ODD, if you know what that is. So, it is a challenge, but I would just encourage any parent who has this situation to, stay dedicated, because it's worthwhile, and they do prosper as they get older. So in taking in consideration of the schools, we did notice things like leaking ceilings, paint peeled off, rust on outdoor equipment that children are sitting on, things that really could cause injuries and is a concern. So we really want to help notify the public and realize that this maintenance does need to happen, and there are needs, some of which I think we can meet as community as we get in different groups, or maybe businesses want to take on a project. I'm just encouraging people to become aware. I want to thank you to the principals also. I'm not good at names, but both principals were very proud of their schools, took us around very cordially, and we could see the differences and some of the needs, especially Estrella Mountain really needs some update in their bathrooms. There's some things that are broken and could cause injury. So it's more like considering the students' well-being, and safety as well. We also want to learn about the school funding so that we can be a little more understanding about that process and educate our neighbors of why the need is and how it is, because many of us come from different school districts in different states, and it's not the same in Arizona as we're learning. So I mentioned we may want to do something like adopt a school, kind of encouraging that. I know I'm running out of time. We're still trying to do the fundraiser, and just want to thank Tom at Estrella Mountain for his dedication to painting buildings and all the maintenance that he does.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Okay. Again, thank you very much.
Okay, members, next up will be item 7.1, approval of consent agenda.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 7.3, personnel action item.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion to approve to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 7.3. Members, if there's anything else that you want pulled, we will have to vote this down and bring it back up since we have a motion and a second currently. With that, we have the motion, we have the second. I will call for the vote. Board Vice President Parks?
Yes.
Board Member Bixler?
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show approve 4 yes, 0 no to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 7.3. Item 7.3 is personnel action items.
I promise I was ready. I really was. I am asking that you approve our personnel action items except for 3 exceptions. If you look on the second page towards the middle, the Elena Stonewall, Catherine Turley, and Christina Crossan. You also saw those resignation letters in your board updates. All 3 of these staff members have chosen to not continue in the middle of the year. And as you know, that does impact students directly when teachers
abandon their contract in the middle of the year. And of course, we do not have a suitable replacement. So I am asking that you approve the rest of the personnel action items except for just those 3 resignations, please.
Excuse me, my name's Elena Stonewall.
Excuse me, ma'am, there's no time for public comment at this point.
I was,
There is no time for public comment at this point. You had to fill out a form ahead of time.
nobody informed me there is a form. I would like to at least have some clarity when this happens. I was in contact with Katrina and she just
Okay,
told
ma'am,
me.
we're not allowed to have public comment from the floor. You'd have to fill out an orange form ahead of time in order to request that.
Where do I get the form?
They're right in the front as you walk in, but they need to be submitted before the meeting starts.
Would I be able to submit a form for the next board meeting
You're more than welcome to do so.
and then air my concern at that time?
You are, yes.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the personnel action items with the exception of Elena Stonewell, Catherine Turley, and Christina Crossan.
You have a motion to approve with the exception of the 3 stated staff members. Do I have a second?
I will second.
You have a motion and a second to approve item 7.3 with the exception of the 3 stated staff members. When I call your name, please specify your vote. Vice President Parks?
Yes.
Board Member Bixler?
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that approved 4 yes, 0 no. Okay, our next item of business is 8.1, open enrollment annual capacity. Ms. Natasha Camp.
Good evening, Mr. President, Vice President Parks, and governing board members. Annually, the governing board, one second, sorry guys. Annually, the superintendent provides a report on capacity for open enrollment by grade level and school. You will see that report attached to agenda item 8.1. Attached to agenda item 8.1, the report compares roll-up student enrollment by grade level with expected staffing for next year based on target class sizes and program capacity. Current roll-up enrollments include open enrollment students approved for school year 2024. Closed grade levels may have already reached target class sizes. Principals have discretion to recommend to the superintendent approval of applications of over 2 the target class size, but under the class minimum of +4 if the grade level teachers support accepting an application over the target class size. Based on our governing board class size targets for school year 2024, the following general education school grade levels are closed to new open enrollment at this time for school year 24-25. Blue Horizons, 3rd grade, 5th grade, 8th grade. Estrella Mountain, kindergarten, 4th grade, 8th grade. Freedom, 2nd grade. Las Brisas, English only, 2nd grade. Liberty, 2nd grade. Rainbow Valley, kindergarten, 6th grade, 7th grade. And Westar, 5th grade. It's important to note that all special education self-contained program capacity is based on target class sizes for those self-contained programs and program capacity. Special education resource students are considered for open enrollment based on general education capacity and special education program numbers and or minutes. New open enrollment students will be accepted for open enrollment if program space is available compared to the current target class size. Maximum capacity for open enrollment is established to prevent the situation where 1 or 2 additional students are accepted for open enrollment, causing class sizes to exceed maximum teacher to student class size ratios, and the district to incur the expenses of hiring an additional teacher to reduce class sizes. We're asking for your approval tonight, and with that, the open enrollment window would accept applicants beginning January 30th and will be due by March 15th. Both continuing and new open enrollment student applications must be completed. All applications are time and date stamped, and applications will be accepted and evaluated on a first come, first served basis according to the priority established in board policy JFB and JFBR as a regulation.
Members, any questions?
Ms. Camp, I recall last year we restricted special ed to in-district only.
Yes, sir. So you'll see in the motion, I have put that language in for you. We are asking that no annual capacity for special education new students for our school year 24-25.
Right in front of me. Thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted clarity for everybody. Thank you.
Same as last year.
Perfect. Thank you.
Members, any additional questions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve open enrollment capacity for school year 2024-25 with no annual capacity for special education new students.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Guess we got 2 seconds, a second and a third. We're official. Okay. When I call your name, please specify your vote. Vice President Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that approved. 4 yes, 0 no. Next item will be item 8.2, discussion consideration to approve the governing board meeting schedule for school year 24-25. Dr. Monroe.
President Todd, Vice President Parks, members of the board, we're bringing this back to you, this agenda item from the last meeting. This is the governing board meeting schedule for the next school year, which begins for our intents and purposes in July. So a few things I wanted to point out here in version 2 is I want to thank Minnie for all the little puzzling she's doing to make this happen for the board based on the board's feedback at the last meeting. So we took it back. The board calendar would change for board meetings to the first and third Monday evenings. There's a few exceptions to that, but that helps us to avoid the board meetings for Buckeye Union School District. Now, it would be our luck if they changed their meeting schedule, but it would avoid their meetings for the most part. It's also mindful of breaks. So what I've noticed as the new superintendent here in the district is we come back from breaks and we have a board meeting that first day, and that makes it very hard on staff. I kind of feel guilty bothering them when they could be taking a day off the week before, and so we'd like to space out those dates a little more. So you'll see that on the new calendar. Also during the summer, you'll notice a few of the board meetings, I believe it's June and July, are on a Wednesday night, and that's to help our HR be more efficient and to better meet some of Beth's and some of our budget timelines. The start time would be at 5:30 like we did tonight, even for the work study sessions. And the new calendar also has the year-long of study sessions so board members can plan accordingly. I do want to remind the board, as you're aware, a board can call a meeting at any time as long as we're following the open meeting law, and we can obviously adjust this meeting schedule at any time. But administration would recommend the governing board approve the meeting schedule for school year 24-25.
Members, any questions? Hearing none, I'll take the motion.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the governing board meeting schedule for school year 24-25.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. When I call your name, please state your vote. Vice President Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that approved 4 yes, 0 no. Next on the agenda is item 8.3, discussion consideration to approve the issuance of a request for proposal to procure employee benefits for a multi-term contract. Ms. Beth Strickler.
Mr. President, Vice President, and members of the board, it is recommended the governing board approve the issuance of a request for proposal to procure employee medical, employee assistance program, COBRA administration, flexible spending account administration, health savings account administration, supplemental worksite individual insurance, dental, vision, basic life, voluntary life, and dependent life for a multi-term contract. Since fiscal year 20, the district has contracted with Asbate Meritain for employee medical, employee assistance program, COBRA administration, telemedicine, and HSA administration. The district also contracts with United Healthcare for FSA administration, AFLAC for supplemental worksite individual insurances, which are paid by the employee, MetLife Dental, iMed, Advantage Vision, and Minnesota Life for basic life, voluntary life, and dependent life. The district marketed both dental and vision in 2022, as well as basic life, voluntary life, and dependent life. The current rate guarantee for dental will end on June 30th, 2024, and the current rate guarantee for vision will end on June 30th, 2026. However, there is potential to obtain bundled pricing by marketing these benefits at this time. It is requested that the district shall use the RFP process to procure employee medical, employee assistance program, COBRA administration, flexible spending account administration, health savings account administration, supplemental worksite individual insurance, dental, vision, basic life, voluntary life, and dependent life. The RFP process is more advantageous to the district because it allows all of the above to occur for competitive purposes. Any questions?
I have no questions. I do have a statement. I appreciate the district doing this. For the last 2 or 3 years, I've asked that we continue to chase the very best benefits possible for our staff. I think this takes us in that direction. And instead of just accepting what's kind of always been, this gives us a chance to give our employees something better. And also, if there is nothing better, hopefully we get a competitive rate. So I'm very appreciative of the staff hearing this. Last year we talked pretty extensively about this when this came up, that we wanted to get out the RFP and really see what's out there. So I hope we're really thinking outside of the box, making sure we're advertising this in the right places, where some of the places that might not typically be chasing education insurance contracts will see it, because I do think there's something that's better than what we've been getting. So with that, just thank you. I know these are more work and a budget time already, but thank you for taking it on.
And President Todd, that is one of our goals in HR, is to continuously be looking for better rates for our employees. If we put out an RFP and there isn't anything better and we can still go under the guarantees that we have, that's fine, but we're always going to continue looking and seeking for better rates if we possibly could get those.
Well, any better rate is, in some aspects, a pay raise for our staff as well. So anything we can do, I certainly appreciate all the work you guys are doing. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll take a motion.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve the issuance of request for proposal RFP to procure employee benefits for a multi-term contract as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. I call your name, specify your vote. Vice President Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also, and I will show that proof 4 yes, 0 no. Okay, next up, number 9, Governing Board comments on agenda topics or recommended agenda topics addition.
Mr. President, I don't know if this needs to be an agenda topic or just a board update. I would like to see in the near future kind of where we are with, I know in the past we have looked into trying to get state funding help for security, RSOs, school SROs, I'm saying that backwards, at each one of our sites, and seeing what the ability is there. Something I've always wanted, so hopefully that is coming around.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a formal request that we post the ongoing maintenance items and costs publicly.
Yeah, I think that's just a request from staff to do that, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
What you mentioned in the work study, right, President?
Okay, I have a couple of things. One came up in the work session. I think Board Member Kenyon or Parks brought it up. The gym floors in our new schools, specifically the Mondo flooring. Mr. Young, I know you're working on that, but unfortunately, we were behind the schedule from previous times, and those floors were very expensive, and they are, to be honest, they're a flat embarrassment. I don't know how to sugarcoat that any better. They're just disgusting. Does not look like there's any way those floors are going to last for as long as, I don't even think they're going to last half as long as we were promised. So I think we need to start looking at that very aggressively, and maybe if you could come back, I think they need to come back out and look. And honestly, I don't think I'm going to be happy until we rip them out and have them replaced with something that works well. They're bad, and they did some fixes at Blue Horizons even worse. I have another request, if we could maybe make our job descriptions public on the district website. I have a lot of people have asked me what a certain position is, and those job descriptions aren't real readily available that I can tell. So if we could look at doing that, that would be great. And then just maybe an update if we are sending truancy letters this year. In the last couple of years, we were not doing that. And I don't know if we're doing that per campus or district-wide, but just to get back to that. Have a couple other things to talk about, and that is we continue to struggle up here at the dais with the Wi-Fi speed. Presentations don't load until the presentation's half over. We need IT to come up with a solution, and if it's board docs, then let's get them here to address it or find something better. And then I do have some concerns at some of our campuses. Our teachers are not able to get cell phone service from some of the campuses, and they would rely on Wi-Fi calling if they were to be away from their desk phone. And so I'd like to look again at our guest network, and it's quite cumbersome for people to get on that thing every day. If you can, I've been to the campuses and looked, and half the time I can't find it. So we need to do something that ensures that if we have an emergency and a teacher's not sitting at their desk and they need to call 911, Wi-Fi calling is an option. All the carriers do that, and we need to make sure that they can access that. So if we can get a report from our IT director on those two issues at the next meeting, that would be great. Aside from that, I have nothing else. Our upcoming meetings, moving on to item 10.1, are Monday, February 12th, Monday, February 26th. We also have March 11th, March 25th, April 8th, and April 29th. Those are all regular board meetings. As discussed, we do have the opportunity to change those dates if we need to, add meetings, and perhaps do some work sessions as they come about. So, members, I would just ask, if you're not going to attend a meeting, if you could please be courteous enough to let Dr. Monroe or myself know you are not violating a public or an open meeting law by telling the president you can't make a meeting. But we sit here tonight and wonder if somebody is not here for a tragedy or something different. So, weighs on my mind, and I would just ask that you let us know if you're not going to be able to make it. With that, we'll move to 11.1, the adjournment of the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
The motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. Call your name, please call your vote. Board member, Vice President Parks.
Aye.
Board member Bixler.
Aye.
Board member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show that approved 4 yes, 0 no. Have a good night.